Ling Han left just like that. This time, he didn't bring Princess Bixiao with him. Instead, he brought the Empress, Hunyo, and the large black dog. Tang Yuner naturally couldn't be left behind. So Ling Han decided to simply use her shuttle. In just a few hours, they had already arrived near Haiping Mountain. They landed, and then Ling Han used his movement technique, bringing them along with him. Second King. When they saw Ling Han, the monkeys called out one after another. Their advancement was very fast, and a great many of them had already advanced into foundation building tier. In fact, the one who advanced the fastest was already in Ultimate Dao Foundation. Ling Han's expression darkened. I already told you, don't call me Second King. I am not the slightest bit stupid. Copyright. Then what about Second Leader? A monkey asked tentatively. Ha 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 ha. The large black dog rolled around on the ground and laughed. You idiot. So even monkeys know that you are stupid. These words offended the monkeys. Immediately, a few baboons jumped out, each grabbing onto one of the large black dog's legs and lifting him up. We can eat dog meat today. These monkeys were also gluttons and began to drool. Little Han, save me, save me. The large black dog hurriedly shouted. Ling Han laughed loudly. Forget it. Spare its wretched life. Only then did the monkeys toss the large black dog onto the ground. Some of their eyes were shining, clearly not giving up on the idea of eating dog meat, scaring the large black dog so much that it clamped its tail between its legs and followed closely behind Ling Han. Second Leader, please. The monkeys called out. The corners of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Why couldn't these monkeys learn? Call me Leader Ling, he emphasized. All right, Second Leader. The monkeys readily accepted. Forget it. Ling Han sighed. He arrived at the depths of the Monkey Valley and saw Brother Monkey. This great elite from the ancient age had still been suppressed at the foot of the mountain and had not escaped. Brother Monkey, Ling Han called out. Second brother, you're here. Brother Monkey glanced at him and couldn't help but nod in gratification. You've broken through to the foundation building tier. Wang. A divine light actually shot out of Brother Monkey's eyes, sweeping over Ling Han. Then, he revealed an expression of shock and said, Second brother, you have actually formed 2 foundation stones of the celestial path. Was this a kind of eye technique? So powerful it could actually see into his mind. This is the fiery golden eyes mystical power of my race, created by Old Sun's distant ancestor. It can only be cast with the power of bloodline, Brother Monkey explained. Oh, so it was passed down from the ancestral king, Brother Monkey's ancestor. Ling Han couldn't help but feel curious, and asked, Brother Monkey, what's that old senior's name? Brother Monkey was proud. Ancestor was a stone monkey nurtured by the spirit of heaven and earth. When he was young, he traveled all over the universe, and secretly learnt from others. In the end, he walked his own path, and became the ancestral king of his generation, known respectfully as the Battle Saint Emperor. Ling Han couldn't help but feel engrossed. When he channeled the demonic monkey fists, he discovered that there would be a rebellious demonic monkey that would appear, striking the heavens above and shattering the depths of hell below. That aura was truly unprecedented and domineering. Presumably, this was the Battle Saint Emperor, but his fist technique would definitely only be able to outline a sliver of the might of the ancestral king. It would not be able to simulate even a sliver of his Tao. Otherwise, this kind of demonic monkey fist would be able to kill even saints. Brother Monkey, the lifespan of an ancestral king is also limited. Furthermore, there is no sign of an ancestral king. I heard that the most recent ancestral king is the great emperor of the human race. Ling Han was slightly puzzled. Brother Monkey nodded. Now that the ancestral king has achieved Tao, the fortune of the whole world will be absorbed into him alone. He is Tao and Tao is him. Thus, as long as the ancestral king is still alive, no one, no matter how heaven-defying his fortune is, would be able to become an emperor and become an ancestral king. Ling Han found this strange. Brother Monkey had only been suppressed, but had not been killed. That was because the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire feared that the Battle Saint Emperor was still alive. But logically speaking, this demon race's great emperor should have long since died. In his later years, My ancestor went to a dangerous place to seek the path of immortality. From then onwards, he has never returned, Brother Monkey said. That was at the edge of the universe. When he got there, my ancestor's suppression of the fortune of heaven and earth also dropped to the weakest level. After millions of years, heaven and earth also returned to normal, and there would be another person who could become an emperor. However, many great elites have deduced that my ancestor did not die. Instead, he was battling in that danger zone, because there would occasionally be world-shaking battle scenes flashing in some corner of the universe. Brother Monkey looked at the sky and said, "After Old Sun becomes a saint, I'll go find my ancestor. If he's trapped in that desperate situation, Old Sun will save him no matter what." Ling Han nodded and said, "Brother Monkey, I'll go with you." Brother Monkey laughed loudly. "All right." If it was another person saying this, Brother Monkey would definitely treat it as a joke. Wasn't it? Even an ancestral king could possibly be trapped. Even if he became a saint, it would still be extremely dangerous for him to go to that danger zone. Ling Han was presently only a mere foundation building tier, and could not even be considered a speck of dust. However, Brother Monkey believed in Ling Han's potential. Having cultivated 2 foundation stones of the celestial path, just how amazing was that? Unprecedented. Ling Han picked some interesting things to share with Brother Monkey, including the fact that he had broken the record of power for Heavenly Tao Foundation in Galaxy Network. Brother Monkey laughed loudly. "Second brother, you're really impressive. Although Old Sun managed to make it into the leaderboard back then, I was still a little short of breaking the record of being the strongest in history. Haha. As expected of Old Sun's brother. Brother Monkey, I've come to see if I can help you escape," Ling Han said. Though Brother Monkey only had to advance into the 4th pinnacle level and become a Venerate tier, he would be able to escape. Brother Monkey had also said that this could possibly take a few years, or even over 100 years. After all, he had never stepped onto this level before. Everything was only his own deduction. What if? Moreover, how could the difficulty of breaking through while being suppressed be the same as breaking through normally? It would also be much more dangerous. Ling Han first went to check on this formation, but the formation that suppressed Brother Monkey was too high level, and he had nowhere to start. "Second brother, your cultivation level is not high enough. No matter how talented you are in formations, it is useless." Brother Monkey shook his head. He looked in a certain direction in the skies. That old bastard from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, suppressing Old Sun for more than 2,000 years. When Old Sun breaks free, I will beat you to death with a single staff strike. There was nothing else that could be done. He could only use this move. Ling Han took out the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower. He hadn't even opened his mouth to speak, when Brother Monkey was immediately moved. "This is Imperial Weapon," Brother Monkey blurted out. Then he shook his head repeatedly. No, the might of the Imperial Weapon should far surpass it. A wisp of aura would be able to turn Old Sun into dust. This is only forged by Origin Gold, the future Imperial Weapon. As expected of Brother Monkey, his insight was extremely sharp. "Brother Monkey, can this help you?" Ling Han asked. There should be hope. Brother Monkey was also a little eager to give it a try, and looked excited. If he could do anything about it, how could he be willing to be trapped? "Second brother, Old Sun has instilled the mystical power into the Imperial Weapon. You control it and bombard the mountain above Old Sun," Brother Monkey said. "All right." Ling Han nodded vigorously. Brother Monkey roared loudly, and a golden light appeared above his head, turning into a small monkey that flew towards Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower. Ling Han suddenly recalled, and hurriedly said, "Brother Monkey, there are still Heavenly Tao flames in this tower. This fire could burn even Venerate tier elites to death." He didn't want to accidentally screw Brother Monkey over as well. "Gee!" Brother Monkey hurriedly braked. The little monkey flashed. It surged back into Brother Monkey's body. "Really?" Brother Monkey asked. Ling Han nodded earnestly. "When I was refining the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower, I went to the site of Heavenly Tao Flames." "That's right. Without the Heavenly Tao Flames, There is absolutely no way to shape the origin gold. Brother Monkey nodded. After I refined the Imperial weapon, I also used the internal space of the Imperial weapon to retrieve some heavenly Tao flames. However, after I stowed the heavenly Tao flames, its might decreased greatly. It can only burn venerate tears to death. Ling Han continued. Brother Monkey couldn't help but grimace at this show-off. He was only at the level of sect master. Even in front of a weaker version of the heavenly Tao flames, he could only kneel. It'll be easy if you have the heavenly Tao flames. Second brother, go to the mountain peak and pour out the heavenly Tao flames, Brother Monkey said. Ling Han was astonished, and he asked, will that hurt you? It's fine. The heavenly Tao flames can easily incinerate this formation. Without waiting for the flames to burn down, Old Sun has already escaped, Brother Monkey said proudly, but changed the topic and continued, however, just in case, let the monkeys retreat first. All right. Ling Han began to evacuate the monkeys, leaving the monkey valley far behind, and that included the Empress, the large black dog, and the others. Then, he returned to the monkey valley all by himself and flew up to the summit. Brother Monkey, I'm about to begin. Let's begin. With a thought from Ling Han, boom, the heavenly Tao flames immediately surged out from the 8th level of the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower, burning at the summit and rapidly spreading, burning towards the waist of the mountain. He hurriedly controlled the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower to fly away. When Brother Monkey appeared, it would definitely be world-shaking. Boom! The heavenly Tao flames spread very quickly, surging all the way down the mountain, burning everything and nothing could not be destroyed. This was an extreme flame that could burn even venerate tears to death, and could be considered pseudo-saint level. Ling Han was slightly anxious. Why hadn't Brother Monkey appeared yet? If the heavenly Tao flames really reached the foot of the mountain, that wouldn't be a joke. He had best head to the foot of the mountain to take a look. If Brother Monkey couldn't do it, he would then withdraw the heavenly Tao flames. Of course, it was impossible to withdraw all of them, but it should be no problem to only withdraw the flames around Brother Monkey. However, before Ling Han could make a move, pong, an earth-shattering bang was heard, and the great mountain beneath suddenly exploded. A figure that looked like a streak of light shot out from underneath, shooting straight into the horizon. I, Old Sun, have come out. In the blink of an eye, that streak of light shot down from the skies again, turning into a furry monkey. This monkey's body was covered with golden fur, and he was as tall as 3 meters. His golden eyes were filled with fire, and they exuded a ferocious might as he looked around. It was as if even heaven and earth was beneath his notice. It was Brother Monkey. Ling Han felt that it was a little blinding. That was because Brother Monkey was completely naked. Thankfully, it was covered with fur. Otherwise, it would really leave a psychological scar on him. Come! Brother Monkey shouted lightly. Shio, shio, shio. Countless golden shadows flew towards him. Pa, pa, pa. They continuously stuck to his body, turning into a dazzling golden armor. Then he stretched out a hand and dug in his ear. Instantly, a golden needle was taken out. Such a mighty and domineering Brother Monkey was actually using a golden needle as his weapon? This, so feminine his eyes were about to pop out of his head. Change! With a soft exclamation from Brother Monkey, the golden needle enlarged continuously, turning into a staff. It was completely golden, and there were also veined patterns on it, exuding a majestic and domineering aura. As it turned out, this could be shrunk and enlarged. The material that could become bigger and smaller had to be at least of the level of the minor advanced tier. However, Brother Monkey was a sect master elite, so it was naturally very normal for him to possess such a treasured staff. This is saintly material, and it's also a replica of ancestors' wishful golden cudgel, Brother Monkey explained. He stood proudly in the sky. As a sect master level, he naturally didn't need to wield a tool to stand in the sky. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Congratulations, Brother Monkey." Brother Monkey nodded. Thanks to second brother's heaven-defying good fortune. Not only did you obtain origin gold, but you also forged an imperial weapon and absorbed the heavenly Tao flames. Otherwise, Old Sun would have to endure for a while longer. Come, let's go down and talk. The two of them landed on the ground. However, the Monkey Valley had already been completely destroyed, but since Brother Monkey had already escaped, he was presently the strongest on the celestial sea planet, so where could he not go? After reuniting with everyone and the monkeys, Brother Monkey used his great power and brought them to a place of natural beauty. He first settled the monkeys down. Then the monkeys took out the fine wine they had brewed and began to celebrate. Ling Han let go of his worries. He didn't think about anything else, and simply drank fine wine with Brother Monkey every day. 7 days later, the banquet finally ended. Second brother, do you find it strange that the demonic monkey fists are inferior to the 3 styles of the god of war? Brother Monkey took the initiative to talk about this matter. Ling Han hadn't mentioned it before because he didn't want Brother Monkey to think that he was using his action of rescuing him to coerce him. Although Brother Monkey wasn't a petty person, he didn't want there to be any misunderstanding between the two of them. However, since Brother Monkey had taken the initiative to mention it, Ling Han nodded. The demonic monkey fists was created by an ancestral king. Logically speaking, even if it wasn't the strongest in the world, it should still be ranked among the strongest. Brother Monkey smiled and said, that so-called 3 styles of the god of war should have been left behind by the Battle God Palace. The Battle God Palace is a holy land. So how could a mere saint-level technique possibly compare to an imperial technique? Moreover, the 3 styles of the god of war isn't the ultimate technique of the Battle God Palace. It's just that your cultivation level is still too low, so the difference isn't very obvious. Ling Han was extremely curious, and he asked, then why? That's because the demonic monkey fists that I taught you were only suitable for you to cultivate in the mortal level. Now that you've advanced into the celestial path, it's naturally different, Brother Monkey said with a smile. It was that simple. Ling Han couldn't help but feel surprised. A fist technique that was used by mortals could still unleash a powerful might when used on celestial path. It was only slightly weaker than the 3 styles of the god of war, so how strong would the celestial path-level demonic monkey fists be? Come, Old Sun will teach you. Ling Han began to cultivate the demonic monkey fists with Brother Monkey. This was an imperial technique, and it wasn't something that he could slowly analyze with a tap of the finger and some teachings from Brother Monkey. This was the world's highest grade celestial technique. Not only did it need to be taught by example, it also needed to be carefully comprehended. Those with poor aptitude could not possibly learn it in 100 or 1,000 years. Even if Ling Han's comprehension ability was so nature-defying, he would not be able to grasp it in a short period of time. A whole month had passed, and he had finally grasped the demonic monkey fists. It was only at the superficial level, and he was still far from grasping the core. Ling Han planned to return to the imperial capital to take a look. Brother Monkey was also quite interested, so he decided to go with Ling Han to the imperial capital to see his junior, Chun Fengyan. Then, he would leave the celestial sea planet and only go to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire after he had become a Venerate tier. And he wondered if Chun Fengyan would call him uncle this time. After only a few hours, Ling Han returned to the imperial capital. Brother Monkey walked casually, while Ling Han logged into Galaxy Network. In this 1 month, he had been earnestly cultivating the demonic monkey fists. He had completely forgotten to eat or sleep, and rested no more than an hour every day. He was really just resting his brain. In this state, he naturally didn't have time to log onto Galaxy Network. The moment he logged into the Galaxy Network, he immediately received a large number of friend requests. Friend, we have important matters to discuss. Young man, I am from the 9 Winds Holy Land. Brother, please approve my friend request. Most requests had side notes. Ling Han only looked through a few before choosing to ignore them. The reason why he had logged into the Galaxy Network this time was not for the sake of ranking or earning money, but rather because he had heard from Brother Monkey that the Galaxy Network had a function called the Time Chamber. In the Time Chamber, the flow of time would be many times faster than normal, similar to the Reincarnation tree, which only targeted the soul. However, the fee for the Time Chamber was very high, extremely high. It used 1 day's time as an example. Acceleration of 2 times would require a payment of 100 universe coins. 3 times would mean 500 universe comms, 10 times would mean 10,000 universe coins, and 100 times would mean 5 million. Though Ling Han had also earned a little money, he could only choose to cultivate at twice the speed for a few days at most. However, Brother Monkey was rich and imposing, and told Ling Han to choose the best time chamber because he had money. In the past, he had been a sect master grade elite. This kind of existence could be called an elite anywhere in the universe, so his ability to earn money was naturally very strong. Something like the universe coins could not possibly be snatched away by the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, even if Brother Monkey had been captured and suppressed years ago. After befriending Brother Monkey, a transfer message was immediately sent over. You earned 100 million universe coins. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Brother Monkey was indeed rich. Fine, he was in desperate need of universe coins now. It wouldn't be too late to repay him in the future. He asked for a time chamber where time flowed 100 times faster, and had the platform automatically deduct his payment, right until he walked out or right until all his universe coins were expended. In the time chamber, Ling Han continued to cultivate the demonic monkey fists. This required a large amount of time to practice. Under normal conditions, it was very normal to only grasp the core after 2 or 1,000 years. However, Ling Han couldn't wait for that long. He wanted to master this fist technique as soon as possible. Thankfully, he had Brother Monkey. Ling Han entered the time chamber and started to practice his fist technique. This was time acceleration of 2 times. Very quickly, a year had passed and then another year had passed. His mastery of the demonic monkey fists was getting deeper and deeper. Why had he only just begun to enter the time chamber to cultivate? Couldn't be helped. Previously, he hadn't grasped the superficial details. He had to have Brother Monkey give him pointers step by step. Now that he had finally grasped the general idea, he could practice on his own. 3 years, 5 years, time flew by. Ling Han was now a pure spirit form, so he could focus all his energy on practicing his fist technique. He still wanted to continue cultivating, but was forced to leave the time chamber. 100 million universe coins had already been deducted. Already? Ling Han thought for a moment. 100 million universe coins could only allow him to cultivate here for 20 days in real time. Then, even if it was sped up 100-fold, it would only be 2,000 days, which was slightly over 5 years. His money was not enough. The Chong clan was truly black-hearted, charging such a high fee. However, he finally mastered one of the moves of the demonic monkey fists. There was only one style, and the real demonic monkey fists was made up of 9 styles. The first style was also the simplest. It had been 5 years, and he had only mastered one move, and it was the simplest move at that. Ling Han sighed. This was an imperial technique. Let's go and test out the might of the new demonic monkey fists. Ling Han went to the Reigning Hall, then came to the fist strength tester. Number 1 in the galaxy is here again. Almost 2 months have passed, and his level ranking is actually still just over 1.1 billion. How strange. With his strength, he can be ranked in the top 200 even among Ultimate Dao Foundation. Why isn't he fighting in a level battle? Someone discovered Ling Han's presence and immediately began to send out messages, summoning friends. And friends called friends, and more people ran over. Ling Han didn't accept private messages, so those noble clans and sects could only personally come over to recruit him. Xiao. One after another, mighty figures appeared. They were all true self tier level elites, and there were even spirit transformation true lords. Ling Han ignored everyone else. Instead, he channeled the demonic monkey fists and entwined them with the destructive energy before launching an attack at the strength tester. Hong. His body exuded golden light, as if there was a demonic monkey that had fused with him, exuding an aura that would make one tremble. This is an imperial technique. Only imperial techniques can possess such might. Heavens! This is the heir of an imperial clan. Forget it, let's all go back. He is the heir of an imperial clan, so how could he possibly be recruited? There were great elites observing in secret, and when they saw Ling Han's punch, they immediately exclaimed in surprise. Furthermore, there was not just one such great elite, and they all voiced their agreement. This was a descendant of an imperial clan. Even the Holy Lands were not qualified to recruit him. Pong! Ling Han's fist landed on the strength tester, and instantly, a terrifying number popped up. 349,426. Heavens! He broke his own record. Ling Han had broken the record for the maximum power of a punch, but it was equivalent to breaking the record for explosive power as well. Everyone was astounded. This wasn't just breaking the record by a little bit, but raising the record by a whopping 30,000. You fucking freak. Yet Ling Han sighed. Imperial techniques were definitely not just 10% stronger than Saint techniques. However, his cultivation level was too low, so there was no fundamental difference in the might of an Imperial technique and a Saint technique. This was really the limit of his battle prowess, unless he could also grasp the other 8 moves of the demonic monkey fists. Ling Han was already queuing up for the level battles. This would take some time, so he first contacted Lin Luo and the others. Close to 2 months had passed, and Lin Luo and the others had also made a name for themselves on the Galaxy network. Their rankings had increased very quickly, and were currently ranked in the 80 millions respectively. Compared to Ling Han's 1.1 billion, they were on 2 completely different levels. After conversing with Lin Luo and the others, Ling Han also finished queuing up and began the level battle. The battle soon ended. Ling Han had just exited the tournament hall when he received a friend request, and the person who had sent the request was Origin. The mysterious prodigy Origin had created a record for pinnacle strength. At present, there were still a great many records that he had created in the training hall. Ling Han pondered for a moment before accepting the friend request from Origin. Battle? The other party sent a simple and direct message. All right, Ling Han replied. In just a short while, Origin sent him a tournament stage number. Ling Han took a look. This tournament stage was set with absolute cultivation level. In this kind of tournament battle, not only would the major tier of cultivation level be pulled into the same level, even the minor tier of cultivation level would be equal. Could be claimed that it was an absolute battle between equals. There were no conditions for the battle. It was only set that only Ling Han could enter into the tournament stage. However, while the tournament stage had a rule about who to battle against, there was no restriction on the spectators. Everyone could enter to watch the battle. A single stone would give rise to 1,000 ripples. Everyone, come quickly. Origin is going to fight with number 1 in the galaxy. Origin versus number 1 in the galaxy. This was an incomparably explosive piece of news. These 2 people had both set a record for the highest limit of strength, and the gap between the 2 records was only over a year. In the same era, 2 such prodigies actually appeared. When Ling Han broke the record of explosive power created by Origin over a month ago, some people were guessing who would win if Origin and Ling Han battled at the same cultivation level. A great many people also posted on the forum, egging on Origin to issue a challenge to Ling Han, or Ling Han to issue a challenge to Origin. However, Origin remained silent the entire time, and Ling Han hadn't logged into the Galaxy network for more than a month. Thus, passers-by could only feel excited for nothing. And now, Origin finally moved, issuing a challenge to Ling Han. Would Ling Han agree? A great many people had already entered into that tournament stage at the first instant, and were waiting for Ling Han to appear. However, Ling Han still hadn't appeared. He doesn't dare to fight? That's right. The news should have spread long ago, but number 1 in the galaxy still hasn't appeared. He must be afraid of battle. Fuck, and he calls himself number 1 in the galaxy? He really dares to boast. He doesn't even dare to fight at the same cultivation level, so how can he be called number 1 in the galaxy? Everyone was filled with disdain, but just as they were talking excitedly, they saw that they had all been forcibly pushed out of this tournament area. What was going on here? They immediately discovered that Origin had already cancelled this tournament stage. Origin had been angered into leaving? No. Look, number 1 in the galaxy has set up another tournament stage, issuing a challenge to Origin. Origin has already entered. Quick, let's go too. There's a fee for entering to watch the battle? Fuck. He actually wants 1,000 universe coins? This is screwing me over. It's a robbery. Everyone was making a big fuss. There was actually a fee? There was no fee for Origin's tournament stage. A guess rose up in all of them. Could it be that it was because Ling Han had not accepted the challenge previously, not because he was afraid of battle, but because he wanted to create a tournament stage himself to collect money? This money grubber? Are you fucking greedy for money? In the battle between two ultimate elites in history, what kind of sacred and dignified matter was this? You fucking actually charged? Charged a fee. Could not be helped. No one wanted to miss out on this kind of battle. Even if there were people who could record it, the majority still wanted to witness it at the first instant. Wasn't it just 1,000 universe coins? Just give it to him. Everyone couldn't suppress their urge to see with their own eyes. They all chose to have Galaxy Network deduct 1,000 universe coins and entered into the tournament area. 1,000 universe coins to watch a battle was truly exorbitantly expensive. However, the two people battling were the two most powerful elites in history, so who would be willing to miss such a battle? There was no shortage of true disciples of great sects and important heirs of noble clans. Gritting their teeth, 1,000 universe coins was not something that they could not afford. Of course, Ling Han would definitely be hated by them. This person was really too good at earning money, wasn't he? Yet Ling Han was completely unconcerned. In such an incomparable battle, if he did not collect some money, how would he be able to forgive himself? He was very poor now. You have obtained 999 universe coins. You have obtained 999 universe coins. You? Ling Han continued to receive notifications from Galaxy Network, and his wallet quickly filled up. Hurry up and start. Opposite him, Origin appeared to be very displeased. For better or worse, you have broken an eternal record. But now, for the sake of earning some money, you actually dragged me into your tournament stage. This was supposed to be a battle of the strongest, yet it had actually become so filled with the smell of money. It's your business whether you want to be shameless or not, but you can't drag me down with you. Hold on, hold on. Ling Han waved his hand. He listened to Galaxy Network's notifications and felt very pleased. Let the universe coins fly for a while longer. Origin had no more patience. He roared loudly and charged towards Ling Han. How could this kind of money grubber stand side by side with him? Origin's figure was extremely tall and sturdy, as if he was the embodiment of a primitive giant. Even if he was a spiritual manifestation, there was still an image of a dragon and phoenix wrapped around each of his arms. Innate divine physique. Dragon Phoenix everlasting saint physique. Everyone was exclaiming in shock. Origin was an innate divine physique. This wasn't a secret, but most people didn't have the chance to see Origin. They had only heard about it, and now that they had seen him, it was indeed true. What was a saintly physique? Only those who possessed a first-class innate divine physique were qualified to be called saint physique. In itself, they were synonymous with power. Boom! Origin shot out a punch, and the power of two punches blasted out, turning into a dragon and a phoenix respectively, that charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han was naturally unafraid. Using the three styles of the God of War, he charged towards Origin. The three styles of the God of War was a powerful move that he had used to break the record of all eternity, so its might was naturally astonishing. The ultimate power was even superior to Origin. Hong! 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 The two of them exchanged blows. They were both people who had broken the record for the highest limit of power. Both of them had astonishing power. Not only were they standing at the highest limit of Heavenly Tao Foundation, they were also the strongest in history. Multiple attacks exploded, and the whole tournament hall seemed to be trembling, with endless shards of seals flickering. Too terrifying. This is really too terrifying. Although I'm a Ultimate Tao Foundation cultivator, I'm sure that I'll be shattered if I come into contact with it. Two monsters. The power of Heavenly Tao Foundation is already this strong. So how on earth have they cultivated this kind of power? Everyone's eyes were bright, and they couldn't help themselves. However, Ling Han discovered that even though the Galaxy Network was constructed by a great emperor, it still had some shortcomings. If he were using the three styles of the God of War in reality, his body would definitely be flooded by the power of heaven and earth once the three styles of the god of war were used, and he wouldn't be able to channel it again. Otherwise, his body would definitely explode and die. However, he was a pure spiritual manifestation now, so he didn't need to worry about any physical burdens at all. He unleashed the three styles of the god of war over and over again, and there were no side effects at all. Additionally, he had absolutely no need to worry about the problem of exhausting his mystical power. He could use any kind of powerful move as much as he liked. Thus, Ling Han believed that elites were indeed powerful when battling on the Galaxy Network. However, when there was a gap of 10 or even under 100 ranks between elites, if they were battling in real life, perhaps those who were ranked lower would win. Taking into account all kinds of realistic problems, it would cause a change in the strength of the cultivators, and even cause a great change in fact. Additionally, in this place, no one would have to worry about the problem of exhausting their mystical power, but in the real world, probably only Ling Han would not have to worry about this. Thus, battling in the Galaxy Network, this advantage of his was completely concealed. There was also the Spirit Tool. Ling Han had a future Imperial weapon, but in the Galaxy Network, a Spirit Tool would not be simulated as well. Of course, in the tournament, one could also choose to use weapons in battle, but it would only have the basic attributes and would not have any additional effects. Ling Han nodded internally. The fact that the Galaxy Network could connect everyone in the universe was already incredibly amazing. It definitely could not be perfect and flawless. Even so, this still couldn't conceal the strength of Origin. It was really powerful. His fist technique was like a violent storm, and Galaxy Network had perfectly manifested the power of his innate divine physique. The two great divine beasts, the dragon and phoenix, were both releasing powerful might, as if he was not fighting alone, but rather had the immortal dragon and the immortal phoenix joining forces with him, as expected of someone who had broken the record for the pinnacle of strength. Origin was unbelievably powerful. Moreover, he didn't need to worry about the burden on his body at all. He could use all kinds of powerful techniques and repetitively. For example, his innate divine physique logically couldn't be channeled continuously, but it was possible here. Of course, this was also because Ling Han was too strong. Otherwise, if it was any other opponent, Origin would have been able to deal with him in a single move. What need was there for the battle to be so drawn out? The two of them battled fiercely, and it was hard to decide the victor. This was the first time Ling Han had encountered such a powerful opponent. In a battle of equal cultivation levels, he had always been invincible, but Origin could completely contend against him. That's right. His explosive power was indeed slightly stronger, but if he didn't use the demonic monkey fists, his advantage wouldn't be very obvious. Most importantly, Origin was not a strength tester, and would not allow him to attack as he liked. Strength was indeed the most important element of battle prowess. However, strength definitely didn't guarantee victory, unless it reached a crushing level. This kind of battle was completely based on individual strength. If they were battling in the outside world, Ling Han wouldn't believe that there would be a second foundation-building cultivator who could possess an imperial weapon. For Ling Han, this kind of opponent also filled him with endless fighting spirit. Only by relying on one's own strength to defeat such an opponent could one truly achieve victory. He channeled out the demonic monkey fists. Instantly, a demonic monkey fused with him, causing his aura to suddenly soar greatly. This was an imperial technique, and merely its aura alone was enough to suppress 99% of foundation-building tier cultivators. They were completely unqualified to oppose it. However, Origin was completely unaffected. Ling Han was astounded. Could it be that the foundation stone of the celestial path that he had cultivated was also a replica of the primitive celestial gate? Otherwise, the spiritual body could not possibly rely on any kind of spirit tool, so how would it be able to resist the intimidation of an imperial technique? He remembered that, when he had been leaping over the celestial gates, he had seen a figure at the end. Was that Origin? But if that was Origin, it would not match in the timeline. Unless one more person had come to the primitive celestial gate. What was wrong with this world? A freak like Ling Han and Origin should only appear once in several great eras, but now, they appeared one after another. Don't forget that there was also Heaven Crushing and Myriad Dao. The strength and talent of these two people should not be inferior to Origin, and added with that mysterious prodigy, the number of super freaks was as many as 5 people. Ling Han withdrew his idle thoughts and continued to battle fiercely with his strongest opponent. The two of them were like peacocks, bursting forth with the brightest light, causing every single member of the audience to be unable to take their eyes off them. In fact, even their breathing had stopped. Thankfully, they were spiritual manifestations now, so even if they didn't breathe, it wouldn't affect them at all. Who can win? It seems to be a complete tie. This is really too shocking. Aside from Origin, Myriad Dao and Heaven Crushing, another incredibly freakish guy has actually appeared. What kind of era are we living in now? In the past few great eras, it was rare for even one such prodigy to appear, and now, all of a sudden, 4 of them have appeared. Everyone sighed ruefully. Being born in this kind of era was practically the tragedy of all prodigies. It was now the foundation building tier, and in future it would be the cauldron forging tier. Then it would be the core formation tier. Whichever cultivation level Ling Han and the others advanced into, it would cause chaos among the prodigies of that cultivation level. Ling Han believed that if he continued to use the demonic monkey fists, even if it was only the first style, he should still be able to defeat Origin. However, he could channel the demonic monkey fists continuously now, but in the real world, he could only use it once in a short period of time. A powerful secret technique naturally had harsh conditions for casting, so how could he channel it continuously? Ling Han didn't need to win in this way. Furthermore, once he defeated Origin, that would be one less gimmick. How would he be able to earn money from ticket fees in future? Yes, he could not win, but he could not lose either. Ling Han maintained his battle prowess the entire time, and it did not change. When a day had passed, the tournament authorities forcefully interfered and ended the battle between the two of them. A tie? No, Ling Han had been judged to have won. Why? Because Origin's cultivation level was higher, even if the two of them were at the peak stage of Heavenly Dao Foundation. Ling Han still hadn't reached the peak stage of Heavenly Dao Foundation yet. He was at a disadvantage. Fighting to a tie in a disadvantageous situation, it was naturally his victory. Origin was defeated. Unfair. This is too unfair. One isn't weak at all. Completely biased. This caused a great many people to protest because everyone was already very dissatisfied with the fact that Ling Han was charging fees in the first place, so it naturally exploded. However, this rule had been set by the Four Directions Great Emperor in the past, so what was the use of protesting? The Galaxy Network Soul completely ignored it. Ling Han was extremely satisfied with this result. Not only had he won, but he had also drawn the displeasure of many people. They were defending Origin. In this way, when he and Origin battled again, more and more people would definitely come to watch the battle. He took a look. The battle he was fighting had actually attracted 730,000 people to watch the battle. Each of them had paid 1,000 universe coins, which was a total of more than 700 million. Heavens, he had earned 2 million universe coins in one go, and there was still a lot more than that. Too bad, this kind of battle could not be carried out continuously. If there was too many of such battles, it would not be so attractive. No one would complain about having too much money. After battling for 3 ranking battles, he exited the Galaxy Network. Now, he had a lot of money, but the problem was how to spend it. On this planet, there was not much difference between having money and not having money. However, he was so hungry. Ling Han immediately felt an intense hunger. After cultivators advanced into Celestial Path, they would be able to survive as long as they could absorb the power of heaven and earth. However, this wouldn't be able to eliminate their hunger. Previously, he had stayed in the Galaxy Network for a consecutive 20 days, and his physical body had not eaten the slightest bit of food all this while. That must mean that he was extremely hungry. Hurry up and go eat. He pushed open the doors and left. Hunyo immediately jumped over. When she found out that he was going to eat, she naturally went with him happily. You've broken through to the foundation building tier? Ling Han was surprised. That's right, bad Ling Han. When I broke through to foundation building tier, you weren't even by Nyo's side. Hunyo humphed. Hihi. Grandpa Dog has also broken through. The large black dog appeared. exuding the unique aura of a foundation-building cultivator. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. Having someone fully support him and fighting alone were two completely different things. Previously, he had worked so hard and had many fortuitous encounters, but that was also because he had spent a very long time to finally break through to foundation-building tier. How could it be as easy as Hunyo and the others? However, he had cultivated each cultivation level to the pinnacle, so he naturally had to spend even more time. Ling Han! Ling Han! Shenyuan Dinggua's voice traveled over from afar. Ling Han sighed. Why was this guy always panicking? It wasn't long before Shenyuan Dinggua charged through the door, panting and looking like the sky was about to collapse. What is it? Does your father want to force you to marry some ugly woman? Ling Han asked with a smile. You're still in the mood to laugh? Something big has happened, Shenyuan Dinggua said loudly to Ling Han after taking 2 deep breaths. What's going on? Ling Han didn't think much of it. Brother Monkey had returned now, and he was the descendant of a genuine imperial clan. His battle prowess was definitely one of the strongest among sect masters. With Brother Monkey standing guard, who would he be afraid of? Someone from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire has come, Shenyuan Dinggua said. This was really shocking news. The Azure Dragon Majestic Empire could be considered the culprit behind the Celestial Sea Planet's difficulties. In the past, this majestic empire was worried that the Chun clan's royal empire would rise up and threaten their orthodox status. So they casually gave the Chun clan a crime of treason and sent out an army to besiege them, leading to the destruction of the Chun clan and the massacre of tens of thousands of living beings. Afterwards, they even used the Celestial Sea Planet as a prison to imprison those who could not be easily killed. Previously, when the Dark North Nation rose up, the prison was also opened. The Azure Dragon Majestic Empire actually did not have the slightest reaction, and only now did they send someone over. They had really come slowly. In the past, Ling Han didn't know the reason, but now that he was connected to the Galaxy Network, it could be said that even on the other side of the universe, no matter what happened, he would be able to react at the first instant. The Azure Dragon Majestic Empire couldn't even take care of themselves during this period of time, because they were invaded by the Shadow Moon Majestic Empire. A great many planets had fallen, and those were all bountiful resource planets. In comparison, how could they possibly take the Celestial Sea Planet, a prison, to heart? Where would they find the manpower to handle this matter? It wasn't until not too long ago that news of the inheritance of the Saint spread far and wide. Even the Azure Dragon Empire Majestic Empire had heard about it, and finally sent an envoy over. Oh, what did that envoy say? Ling Han asked. Shenyuan Dinggua shook his head and said, How would I know? Then has His Majesty stepped out? Ling Han asked again. Not yet. The second prince, the third prince, and the council chairperson have all gone to receive them. I am sure that not too long after, His Majesty would also be alerted, Shenyuan Dinggua deduced. Ling Han nodded. An envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire had come. Such an important matter would definitely alert Qin Fengyan. Though now that the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was being invaded by an external enemy, they would definitely be hard-pressed and severely short of manpower. If they squeezed out some of their manpower and sent out a sect master, that would be enough to sweep aside all opposition in the Celestial Sea Planet, of course. This did not take into account Brother Monkey. Then what do the 4 great sects say? Ling Han knocked on the table. What can they say? Shenyuan Dinggua sneered. They're staying here for the inheritance of the saint. Now that it is proven that the so-called saint's inheritance is a lie, they can run at any time. The reason why they haven't left immediately is because they've occupied some bountiful sites, where they can harvest high-level celestial medicines. That's why they are staying here as long as they can. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. You've seen things quite thoroughly. Of course. Shenyuan Dinggua was a little proud. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, His Majesty will definitely step out on this matter. Let's just wait and see. Sure enough, only a day later, Qin Fengyan appeared and met with this envoy from the Superior Empire. Brother Monkey had also returned, and said that he was about to leave Celestial Sea Planet. He was going to break through to the 4th pinnacle level, and in the current environment of Celestial Sea Planet, he would need a very long time. He had to go to a great planet. Brother Monkey, have you seen Chun Fengyan? Ling Han asked. Brother Monkey nodded. That brat is actually hiding in the restrictions on the 18th underground level. He's really as cowardly as a mouse. However, Old Sun swept aside all obstacles along the way. So what use are these restrictions? Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. The reason why Qin Fengyan had set up this kind of restriction should be to prevent Primordial True Lord and the others from sneak attacking him while he was in seclusion. But what kind of existence was Brother Monkey? Sect master level, and furthermore, he was a descendant of an ancestral king, a great demon that possessed a saint tool, so it was natural that he could destroy everything in his way. LMG Han silently mourned for Chun Fengyan in his mind. Who told him to have such a senior? This brat is really too useless. So many years have passed, and his cultivation level is actually still the same as before. I'm so angry that I beat him up. Brother Monkey humphed. Also, Old Sun asked him before, and he actually didn't call second brother uncle. Old Sun was so angry that he beat him up again. Chun Fengyan actually didn't die. He was quite durable. Old Sun has already told that brat that he has to listen to you in everything in the future, Brother Monkey said. Under Brother Monkey's violent attacks, perhaps even Chun Fengyan wouldn't dare to say no. Second brother, the path of martial arts is long, and you need to advance with determination. You're too sentimental, and this will probably delay your cultivation, Brother Monkey continued. A vicious glint flashed in his eyes. Old Sun will help you kill those women. Fuck, what kind of thought process is going through your head? Ling Han hurriedly waved his hand and said, Brother Monkey, don't be rash. I know what I'm doing, and I definitely won't delay my cultivation. Look, haven't I formed 2 foundations of the celestial path, which is an unprecedented feat. To form 2 celestial foundations, there were 2 conditions and neither could be missing. Firstly, life had to be nurtured in dimensions within one's body. This was something that no one in the entire galaxy could do. Secondly, even if there really was someone who could do the same as Ling Han, they would still have to use an imperial weapon as suppression. Otherwise, the second celestial foundation would still be impossible to form. Hence, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was an unprecedented feat. Brother Monkey nodded. Forget it then. That was close. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief. The next time I see you, second brother, if your cultivation level doesn't reach Old Sun's expectations, then Old Sun will still decide to sever your mortal bonds for you. Brother Monkey continued. Then, with a leap he directly pierced through the heavens, turning into a streak of light that disappeared. The pressure was huge. Brother Monkey, you didn't say when you would return, nor did you say what cultivation level I should reach to satisfy you, making me feel very uncertain. Forget it, he'd just work hard on cultivation. Ling Han pondered for a moment. Chun Fengyan had come out of seclusion so quickly. Had he simply come out because he had been dragged out and beaten up by Brother Monkey? Otherwise, he would probably still be diligently cultivating in seclusion, right? Ling Han was just thinking about this when Imperial Guards suddenly came over. They came to announce an Imperial decree that decreed that Ling Han should enter the palace immediately. On the surface, Ling Han was naturally Chun Fengyan's subject, so he naturally had to comply with the Emperor's decree. Thus, Ling Han set out with the Imperial Guards, heading towards the Imperial Palace. Today, the Imperial Palace was really bustling with noise and excitement. Not only were the Imperial Princes present, but there were also the 4 great generals, the council chairman, and the likes. Because of Hong Tianbu, Grand Tutor Hong had long since fled the imperial capital and gone to the Nine Spirits sect. Ling Han swept an eye over him. Chun Fengyan was naturally seated high up on the throne, but beneath him, a green-robed man was also seated. He was still sipping tea, looking very relaxed and carefree. This must be the envoy of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Otherwise, why would he dare to be so arrogant? In front of the Emperor, everyone could only stand solemnly. Is this Ling Han, one of the 2 prodigies of the imperial capital? The envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire glanced at Ling Han and asked. All the officials looked furious. This was the imperial palace, and Chun Fengyan hadn't even spoken yet. What right did he have to speak? However, this person was the envoy of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Even if he was slightly arrogant, what could they do about it? Moreover, he was an ultimate Dao Foundation cultivator, so who here could compare? Could it be that Chen Fengyan, the emperor, had to personally teach this rude guy a lesson? That would really be hilarious. There was no one in the massive Dark North nation that could compare to him, and they actually wanted a spirit transformation true lord to personally teach a mere ultimate Dao Foundation a lesson. Wasn't it embarrassing? Ling Han strode toward the envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. There was a disdainful smile on the envoy's face. This royal empire was truly waning. Up until now, he had actually not seen anyone that could match his cultivation level. Not counting Chen Fengyan, he should have escaped from the prison. Actually, he did not know at all how many people and elites were actually imprisoned inside. However, he wasn't afraid of Chen Fengyan. This time, he had come on behalf of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. So what if he was only an ultimate Dao Foundation? Who would dare to touch him? Touching him would be disrespecting the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, and it would draw out the great elites of the Majestic Empire to move and flatten the Dark North nation. Moreover, aside from Chen Fengyan, who else could rival him? Ling Han was already approaching, and he raised his hand. Hiss! Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. It can't be that you want to slap him, right? To be honest, they too wanted to, but firstly, they did not have the ability, and secondly, even if they did, they would not dare. That was the envoy of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Hitting him would mean great trouble. Impudence! The envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was enraged. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han hadn't hit him yet, he was already enraged by the fact that Ling Han was standing in front of him in such a position. Didn't he know the rules? I am an envoy to the Imperial Court. I'm beating a bastard like you, Ling Han said and delivered a slap. He had not struck suddenly, but rather made his stand clear. I have come to thrash you, frank and forthright. It was precisely because of this that the envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was naturally enraged. You really dare to slap me? You're seeking death, he said with a cold chuckle. This person was far too stupid. Did he really think that he could act as arrogant as he liked just because he was one of the two prodigies of the imperial capital? This was a backward and primitive planet. The path of martial arts had just begun here, so what kind of prodigy could emerge? Because he was the tallest among the dwarves, he thought that he was taller than anyone else? He also moved, and delivered a palm strike right at Ling Han's face. He was going to kill Ling Han with this strike. Pa! A slap landed, unstoppable. The envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was instantly sent flying. Pong! He fell heavily onto the ground, blood seeping out. Hiss! Everyone inhaled sharply. He had beaten an envoy, and the matter had blown up. Good, good, good. The envoy flipped over and got back to his feet, blood all over the corners of his lips. He pointed angrily at Ling Han, then pointed at the others. You guys are done for, you're all done for. All of you are going to die. All of you. Ling Han scoffed. Haven't you learnt your lesson yet? He strode over. Pa pa pa, he greeted the envoy with a series of slaps. All the ministers, including those imperial princes, were dumbfounded. If you want to die, don't drag us down with you. Why didn't His Majesty stop him? It was naturally satisfying to vent anger, but the consequences still had to be considered. Couldn't be done at the expense of lives, right? And His Majesty is not in a position to advise against it, is he? You see, he was arrogant, and His Majesty couldn't make a move directly, making others laugh at the Dark North nation for having no one to rely on. Then, Ling Han stepped out and won back some face for the Dark North nation. That naturally was a merit. If it was a merit, how could His Majesty reprimand him? They understood. Some subjects immediately felt that they had touched the point of issue for Chen Fengyan, and thought that this was a good opportunity to curry his favor. Ling Han, that's enough. Stop, they all called out. It was not convenient for His Majesty to speak, so it was naturally up to them to do the job. Yet Ling Han did not even cast a look at them. He was just here to thrash this envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. He did not have the slightest bit of positive feelings towards the members of the Meng clan. Previously, he had competed with Meng Yongcheng over the Buddhist race's fated opportunity, and added with the crime that Azure Dragon Majestic Empire had committed on the Celestial Sea Planet. Brother Monkey had suffered for more than 2,000 years because of this. This had determined that Ling Han and Azure Dragon Majestic Empire would definitely end up on opposing sides. As for today, he would beat up the envoy first and collect some interest. Ling Han, you've gone crazy. Stop! All the ministers shouted loudly, and even a few imperial princes almost rushed over. However, Chun Fengyan did not speak all this while, so how could the others have the courage to come to blows with Ling Han in this palace? The envoy finally understood Ling Han's determination. Although his heart was filled with fury, a wise man doesn't fight when the odds are against him. He obediently shut his mouth. Do you know where you've gone wrong? Ling Han asked. He hadn't done anything wrong. The envoy thought, but how could he possibly dare to be stubborn with Ling Han? Hurriedly, he said, I should not have gone out of line in front of the Dark North King. Ling Han patted his head and said, You still know where the line is? The envoy muttered internally. This was only a primitive land, so what was it worth in front of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, which was at its peak? If it was not for the invasion of the Shadow Moon Majestic Empire, they would have directly mobilized an army of elites to flatten this planet completely. I know my mistake, he said obediently. When he returned to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, he would definitely add fuel to the fire and egg on the Imperial Court to send elites to destroy the Dark North Nation. Ling Han smiled faintly. Are you thinking that when you return, you will definitely exaggerate today's matter 100-fold, and then ask the elites to destroy us? When everyone heard this, they wanted nothing more than to rush over and beat Ling Han up. Aren't you teaching him what to do? The envoy hurriedly shook his head and said, How could that be? Impossible. His expression was filled with righteousness. Ling Han chuckled and said, It's fine even if you say it. However, you're just a foundation-building cultivator. So what if you've been wronged? Who would take it to heart? Our Dark North Nation is a loyal subject of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Do you think the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire will raise its butcher's knife against loyal subjects? Fool! There are so many people in the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, so why did they send you over? Don't you have any idea? The envoy's heart skipped a beat. That's right, why had they sent him? He was merely in the foundation-building tier, and in the galaxy he was not even worth a fart. Who would take him seriously? Yet he had been beaten silly by Ling Han. The reason why the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire had sent him here was firstly, because the front lines were really in dire straits, and they could not spare any elites. After all, the internal strife in the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was also very great, and a great many great forces were no longer very obedient. Furthermore, the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire still considered themselves as one of the superior nations, and looked down on the Celestial Sea Planet 100 times over, so they naturally did not think that there was any need to send elites over. They were just a bunch of prisoners. I did not mobilize troops to destroy you, but rather asked you to surrender. Naturally, you should be crying in gratitude. What else do you want? The envoy had completely lost his pride. At present, the front lines were in dire straits, and spiritual transformation true lords like Chun Fengyan and the others would be fully assisting. In comparison, what was he worth? Only then did Ling Han smile. He tossed the messenger back onto the chair, and clasped his hands respectfully at Chun Fengyan, saying, Greetings, Your Majesty. Chun Fengyan suddenly stood up. Fuck! This is my youngest uncle. Not long ago, he was thrashed by Uncle Monkey and scolded for disrespecting his elders. He was beaten to the point that he couldn't bear it anymore. Now, however, Ling Han was actually paying respects to him. This was truly going to kill him. Where was Uncle Monkey? Was Uncle Monkey here? He couldn't help but look around, his heart thumping wildly. All the ministers were surprised. What was going on here? A subject bowed, and Chun Fengyan actually stood up. Hiss, this was too exaggerated, wasn't it? Chun Fengyan also realized that he had lost his composure. Couldn't be helped. He had been beaten to the point of doubting life by Brother Monkey previously. He sat back down, waved his hand and said, My dear subject, there's no need to be so polite. Ling Han nodded and retreated among the ministers. Shua, every minister involuntarily took a few steps back, maintaining an absolute distance from Ling Han. No one wanted to have anything to do with this troublemaker. Ling Han was rendered speechless. Was he that scary? Chen Fengyan looked at the envoy and said calmly, "You, come on behalf of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. So what's your intention?" That envoy finally recovered a little of his pride. But when he discovered that Ling Han was staring at him, this little bit of pride immediately vanished without a trace. Others might have reservations, but this guy didn't. Others didn't dare to touch him, but this guy did. The envoy hurriedly said honestly, "Our Imperial Majesty requests the Dark North King to deliver your letter of surrender and send an envoy to represent the Dark North Nation to stay eternally in our empire." It was very much in line with the rules to present a surrender letter. The Azure Dragon Majestic Empire could not possibly allow an uncontrollable force to appear in their territory. But they still needed the Dark North Nation to send out an envoy. Wasn't this clearly a hostage? All the imperial princes looked livid. This envoy was definitely going to be chosen from among them. Among them, the 10 eldest imperial princes were the most nervous. They had the best natural talent and had the highest cultivation level. Thus, they would definitely be the first to be chosen. The more important this hostage was to Chen Fengyan, the more obedient Chen Fengyan would be. This was a simple logic that could be understood just by thinking about it. However, who would want to become a hostage? To put it nicely, they would be an envoy, but in truth, they were a hostage, and what good treatment could a hostage get? They were all imperial princes, and able to command so many people at once now, so how awe-inspiring was that? However, if he went to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, he would be like an insect that wouldn't get any response no matter how much he called out. All the imperial princes turned to look at Chen Fengyan, hoping that their father's love for them would be as great as a mountain. They hoped that he wouldn't choose them. "I'll go," a voice rang out. In the silence, it seemed very abrupt. Shua, all eyes turned towards Ling Han. It was Ling Han who had spoken just now. All the subjects shook their heads. "You are really too fucking good at sucking up. But the problem is, no matter how much His Majesty dotes on you, what right do you have to be a hostage? One couldn't become a hostage so easily. One had to have a high enough status." Before Chen Fengyan could speak, the messenger interrupted. It's best that the messenger is the son of the Dark North King. Otherwise, it might be useless even if you go." He was scared off by Ling Han's beating, and his words were very careful, fearing that Ling Han would come and beat him up again in anger. Ling Han cracked a smile. "Don't worry. My weight is enough." He paused for a moment before turning to Chen Feng and asking, "Isn't that right, nephew?" "Shua." Everyone turned to look at Chen Fengyan. "Nephew? Chen Fengyan felt extremely vexed. What would come eventually would come. This relationship couldn't be concealed. However, he was also grateful that Ling Han was willing to stand up for the Chen clan. He nodded. "Subject Ling is indeed my elder. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples." What? Ling Han was actually Chen Fengyan's senior? Heavens! How was this possible? Meanwhile, the second imperial prince and the others suddenly recalled that when Ling Han had been teaching them a lesson, he had indeed said that he was their granduncle. At first, they had thought that Ling Han was deliberately taking advantage of them, but they had not thought that it was actually true. The envoy was also surprised. Chen Fengyan was the ruler of a nation, and he was more so a mighty spirit transformation true lord. If he dared to recognize a random person as elder, he would definitely lose all face. Thus, Ling Han was genuinely Chen Fengyan's senior. No wonder Chen Fengyan didn't stop Ling Han from acting so arrogantly just then. Wasn't that treasonous? "This nephew of mine has over 100 sons. He would not take any one of them to heart at all," Ling Han said. "However, it is different for me, his uncle. There is only one, and the significance is completely different." Why are you still promoting yourself?" Everyone was speechless. "You are going to be a hostage, not to enjoy life. Why are you so proactive?" The envoy couldn't help but nod. "That's right. He had over 100 sons. Whichever one he chose as hostage, would they be able to use him to threaten Chen Fengyan? Moreover, once Ling Han went to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, wouldn't it be his territory? It was now possible for him to exact revenge. When he thought of this, his heart involuntarily thumped. "All right, it's you then," he nodded. Everyone was speechless. This was such a big matter, and Ling Han had decided with just a single word of self-promotion and a nod from the envoy? This was too childish, wasn't it? Ling Han, Chen Fengyan said. This was Uncle Monkey's sworn brother. If he sent Ling Han to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire, Uncle Monkey would definitely beat him to death. Ling Han smiled and said, "I've made up my mind." Chen Fengyan could only keep his mouth shut. Ling Han had already put on the airs of an elder, so if he dared to disobey, he would also be beaten up by Uncle Monkey. It was really difficult to be a nephew these days. It wasn't long before Chen Fengyan issued the imperial decree. 3 days later, Ling Han brought the imperial decree with him and set off for the Moonlight Planet with the envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Was Ling Han really so righteous, and was making sacrifices for the Chun clan? Of course not. This was a decision that he had made after careful consideration. Firstly, on the Celestial Sea Planet, Ling Han's alchemy abilities could not be used at all, which was equivalent to them being wasted. He had to go to a planet that was rich in resources. Secondly, he was now connected to the galaxy network, and he wasn't short of money at all. He could buy whatever he wanted, but if he was on the Celestial Sea Planet Ho-Ho, there would be no postage. Thirdly, he wanted to probe the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire first, to prepare for the future. Thus, he would rather take the risk to become a hostage. If he was really angered, he could just release the heavenly Tao flames and turn the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire upside down. Then, he could call Brother Monkey to come and provide support, and leave the holy land of Metal Element far behind. After returning to the Foreign Affairs Department, Ling Han made arrangements. He was going to be a hostage this time, so he definitely couldn't bring the Empress and the others with him. However, the Empress and the others had also advanced into the Foundation building tier, so it would be too slow for them to advance if they stayed on the Celestial Sea Planet. Thus, the Empress and the others had to set out soon after, and he had Tang Yuner send them off with a shuttle. In any case, with the Essence Nurturing Gourd, it could hold a lot of people. It was needless to ask the Empress and the others. They were all his wives. Meanwhile, Lin Luo, Zhou Heng, Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, and the others also expressed their willingness to go to the Moonlight Planet. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. When Brother Monkey advanced into the 4th pinnacle level and became a Venerate tier, these people should have grown and become Brother Monkey's powerful helpers, defeating the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire in a single stroke. This trip to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire would bury countless seeds of hope. The Empress was still fine, but Hu Niu wasn't a reasonable person. She acted spoiled and wanted to go with Ling Han. In the end, she was suppressed by the Empress, and could only cry out loudly. 3 days later, Ling Han left the Foreign Affairs Department and boarded a warship with the envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. They set off for the Moonlight Planet, and he was accompanied by the large black dog and the perverted pig. After boarding the warship, Ling Han stayed alone in the cabin. Of course, there was also the large black dog and the perverted pig. Though he was going to be a hostage and could not possibly bring his whole family with him, there was no rule against bringing pets, was there? The envoy from the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire was called Gu Shuang. He thought that Ling Han was scared of leaving home, and ignored this. His mind was filled with thoughts of how he was going to vent his anger after returning to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. At present, he definitely did not dare to kill Ling Han. This was a hostage from the Dark North Nation, but if he embarrassed Ling Han a little, or even gave him a good thrashing, that was fine. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, the warship began to traverse through the galaxy. Ling Han naturally didn't feel any grief. He had experienced this kind of situation many times before, so he only had ambitions of conquering new territory. How could he worry about personal gains and losses? He connected with Galaxy Network and began today's level battles. After a few days, his ranking was also shooting up. At the lower levels, if one maintained a winning streak, their ranking would increase very quickly. Lin Luo and the others had only fought for less than 2 months, yet they had already entered the top 100 million, which was proof enough of this. He had already mastered one form of the demonic monkey fists, and from the second form onwards, there was still a requirement for cultivation level. It was not something that could be achieved simply through hard cultivation. Thus, Ling Han did not waste any more universe coins to go to the time chamber to cultivate. Instead, he went to the training hall to break records. He would experience great improvement every day, and his power was naturally increasing as well. However, he had not broken through to the next cultivation level, so this kind of improvement was naturally limited. There would not be any sudden qualitative change. However, he wasn't far from those records in the first place. Slowly, he broke records one after another. Although he didn't obtain many universe coins, his reputation became more and more renowned. There were too many people who wanted to defeat him and make a name for themselves in a single stroke. Regarding this, Ling Han was also very willing to oblige them. He clearly stated a price of 10,000 universe coins per battle. At this point, the strength of Ling Han's talent had indeed shocked the universe. At the same time, his reputation for being a money grubber was not to be outdone either, causing many great forces to come to recruit him. The first words they said were, "As long as you join us, you can ask for as many universe coins as you want." Ling Han indeed needed money very much, but he would definitely not sell himself off to any force. Moreover, if he wanted money, couldn't he earn it himself? He tried to find Origin to fight again, but Origin would refuse every time. When he was annoyed enough, he replied that there was no meaning to continue fighting now. He would fight again after Ling Han had a breakthrough in strength, or Ling Han had advanced into Ultimate Dao Foundation. Wasn't this cutting off his source of income? Ling Han was in high spirits, and went to contact Myriad Dao and Heaven Crushing. He wanted to befriend them, then open a tournament stage to collect fees for tickets, but the two of them actually ignored him. Had he become notorious now? He patiently and continuously issued his friend request, and the two of them finally replied. They said that Ling Han had to be ranked in the top 10 of Galaxy Network at least before they could exchange blows with Ling Han. There was nothing else that could be done. He could only find another way to earn money. Don't say there were really people who refused to believe it and came to challenge Ling Han. However, Ling Han's strength could be ranked around 100th even among those in Ultimate Dao Foundation. And how could those who were ranked so high take the initiative to challenge someone with such a low point level like Ling Han? Winning would not bring them any glory, but losing would mean losing face. What was the point? Ling Han would participate in the level battles every day and earn some extra income from accepting challenges from others. He didn't feel that his days were difficult. However, he couldn't absorb the power of heaven and earth in the heaven and earth, so he could only rely on the Azure would restore spirit pill to improve. This caused his advancement to become very slow. Couldn't be helped. The silver dragon fish's effects were more or less digested. The warship passed through one wormhole after another, and after a whole 2 months, they finally arrived at Moonlight Planet. "We've finally arrived." Gu Shuang smirked coldly. This was his territory. Now that they were here, even if Ling Han was a dragon, he would have to coil himself up. He would slowly deal with Ling Han. The warship landed, and Gu Shuang was the first to disembark. He glanced at Ling Han, who was behind him, and saw that the latter had a relaxed expression on his face. He did not have the slightest bit of unease and anxiety that came from having just arrived here, which made him feel slightly displeased. In his eyes, Ling Han had suddenly come to the territory of the majestic empire. He was all alone, with no one to rely on at all, so he would definitely be in a state of anxiety. Just how thick was this guy's brain? He wanted to remind Ling Han and wake him up a little, but before he could speak, he saw Ling Han looking at him with a faint smile, causing his heart to involuntarily tremble. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He was already traumatized by Ling Han. Ling Han stepped onto the ground. He looked around. Moonlight Planet, he was here again. "Come with me," Gu Shuang said. He was extremely displeased with his own performance. They were already in his territory, yet he was still as afraid of Ling Han as if he was a snake. The two of them strode forwards, and soon arrived at the clan mansion copyright. This guy is the uncle of the Dark North Nation's leader? When the person in charge saw Ling Han, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Guxuang, are you joking?" This person looked to be in his 20s, and it was not that he looked young, but that he was really young. That flame of life blazed brightly, and he definitely could not be over 100 years old. But what about Chun Fengyan? Being able to become a spirit transformation true lord, which one of them wasn't an old monster? Guxuang hurriedly nodded and said, "That's indeed the case. I saw Chun Fengyan admit it with my own eyes. Also, this is the surrender letter that Chun Fengyan handed in. It also clearly states that his uncle, Ling Han, is to stay eternally in our empire." The person in charge still couldn't believe it. He stared at Ling Han repeatedly, and after a long time, he finally made a record of Ling Han's identity, allowing him to enter into the Jia Yuan Manor. The Jia Yuan Manor was also known as the political hostage manor, because the people who lived there had the same nature as Ling Han and were hostages of the extraterrestrial forces that were subordinate to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Thus, they were all hostages, so what else could they be called if not the political hostage manor copyright? Now that they were here, this was no longer a place that Guxuang could touch. He watched Ling Han leave, while he was already planning in his heart who he should ask to give Ling Han a harsh beating. He definitely could not swallow this humiliation. Ling Han followed a servant into the Jia Yuan Manor. This was a very large place with multiple courtyards, and there was a hostage living in each courtyard. The conditions were not too bad, and they were all equipped with servants. "Young Master Ling, this is your residence." The servant led Ling Han into a courtyard, then nodded at Ling Han before turning around to leave. Ling Han walked in, and immediately, 3 servants approached him. They bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord." These 3 servants were 2 men and 1 woman respectively. All of them looked to be over 40 years old. Their looks were ordinary and possessed a slight cultivation level. They were all at the level of blood transformation tier. Ling Han nodded. "My surname is Ling, and my name is Ling Han. You guys can just call me Young Master Han." "Young Master Han," the 3 servants said at the same time. Their attitudes were extremely respectful. Even though Ling Han was a hostage, he was still a special envoy representing a nation, so how could he be disrespected? Ling Han waved his hand, indicating for them to leave. Then, he planned to go out and buy the ingredients for concocting the Foundation dissolution pill. However, when he arrived at the entrance of the Jia Yuan Manor, he was stopped. Without special permission, you are not allowed to go out. It was not that someone was deliberately targeting Ling Han, but rather that this was the rule of the Jia Yuan Manor. A hostage could not be allowed to leave as he willed it. TSK. Did they really think of him as a prisoner? Ling Han didn't argue. Although the guards here were only at the cultivation level of the Foundation building tier, and he could deal with them with a single finger if he really made a move, he would attract the suppression of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. For the current Ling Han, this was a colossal giant that he couldn't oppose yet. Thus, he turned around and returned. However, he asked, "I can't go out. Is there any problem with my dog going out for a walk?" "Walking the dog?" "Oh no, the dog was walking itself?" The guard at the door thought for a moment, then said that there was no problem. As long as there was no problem. After Ling Han returned, he called the large black dog over. "What's wrong? Can't you see that I'm busy right now?" The large black dog was presently sprawled out on the ground. Ever since he had equipped the connection device, it was as if he had obtained an incredibly interesting toy. He had been immersed in that world all this while, and was having a great time playing with it. Ling Han chuckled. "All right, then from now onwards, I won't give you any more universe coins." Hee hee. The large black dog immediately got up and said with an obsequious smile, "Little Han Han, Grandpa Dog was just joking with you. Don't take it seriously. Quick, tell me what's the matter." "Grandpa Dog is just about to bring a girl to barge into a place of extreme frost. We agreed that after we barged in, the girl would show Grandpa Dog her underpants." Ling Han almost gave him a slap. "What are you thinking about all day?" In the Galaxy Network, in addition to sparring and shopping, There were also some virtual mystery realms that could allow people to enter for training and increase their experience. The reason why people died time and time again in virtual mystery realms was actually so that they would not die in real mystery realms, or even be injured in real mystery realms. But when it came to the large black dog, it actually became a tool for him to pick up girls. "You damn dog, can't you show some promise?" Ling Han sighed. "Hung, hung." The pervert pig also mocked from the sidelines. "You're not much better either." Ling Han glared at him. The perverted pig gave him a disdainful look. If it was not for this guy, it would definitely be in the arms of different beauties by now, enjoying all the luck with women. "Little Han, why are you calling Grandpa Dog over?" the large black dog asked. Ling Han looked at it. Now he was slightly hesitant. Would it be reliable to hand this matter over to the large black dog? Would this guy embezzle his funds to court women? However, if he didn't send the large black dog, could it be that he should let the perverted pig go? Ling Han glanced at the perverted pig and shook his head. Why was there only this unreliable pig and dog by his side? The pervert pig was instantly enraged. What kind of gaze was that? It was one thing for you to look down on that perverted dog, but why did you have to sweep your gaze over Lord Pig as well? Bastard? There was nothing else that could be done. He had best let the large black dog do the job. "Help me buy some medicinal ingredients," Ling Han said seriously. The large black dog faltered for a moment before cocking its head to one side to look at Ling Han. "Little Han, you actually delayed Grandpa Dog's time to court women for such a small matter? Here, I'll transfer 200,000 universe coins to you. Buy me 10 portions of the medicinal ingredients listed here, and I've marked the price for each of them. If you can buy them back at a lower price, they'll be considered your errand fee." Ling Han tempted. I'll go. The large black dog immediately stood up on his hind legs, one arm wrapped around Ling Han's shoulder. "Little Han, if anything like this happens in the future, just send Grandpa Dog over. Who are we to each other? Get lost." After Ling Han transferred the money, the large black dog fled in a flash. After half a day, he finally saw the large black dog slowly return. He had thrown all the ingredients on the ground and then disappeared in a flash. He had probably embezzled a lot of money and feared that Ling Han would go back on his word. Unfortunately, it didn't know how much money Ling Han had earned from the tickets for his battle with Origin. Otherwise, it would definitely strangle Ling Han's neck and demand a dividend. Ling Han smiled, and after counting the ingredients, nodded. Though the large black dog was unreliable, the medicinal ingredients he had bought this time were not too bad. There were no cases of inadequacy of age, or of medicinal effects being lost after being left for too long. On this point, the large black dog still had some sense of propriety. He knew the importance of Ling Han's alchemy skills, so he should have only made some money from getting good bargains. Otherwise, if he had just bought some medicinal ingredients, he should not have spent practically half a day's time. He had probably worn out his mouth and dumbfounded the shop assistant. In this aspect, Ling Han was far too confident in the large black dog. Ling Han then set up the formation. He frowned slightly. The heaven and earth here had been changed and used to build the defensive formation of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. That was a very high-level formation, which also made Ling Han's desire to stimulate the heaven and earth here and form an alchemy formation became a very troublesome task. Simply put, he was no match for that great formation in the imperial capital. There was nothing else that could be done. Ling Han could only use the Dao stones as replacement and burn the energy of the Dao stones to replenish the power of heaven and earth. This consumed a lot of Dao stones, but there was nothing that could be done. Ling Han began to concoct alchemical pills. He tossed the medicinal ingredients into the cauldron and used his spiritual power to stimulate the power of heaven and earth, blending and improving the essence of the medicinal ingredients. Pa! A crisp sound rang out, and the alchemy cauldron shattered. Ling Han couldn't help but frown. There was nothing wrong with his concoction technique, but concocting alchemical pills above celestial path, the power of heaven and earth stimulated was extremely shocking. This ordinary alchemy cauldron could not withstand the pressure of this kind of energy, and easily shattered. Could it be that he would have to use the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower again? This was the imperial capital of the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Ling Han didn't want to expose his treasures. Although he could have the imperial weapon keep a low profile, this wasn't enough for greedy people. He had to get a better alchemy cauldron. He couldn't keep using the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower to refine pills in the future, right? He took out the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower and began to refine it again. This time, he would use the future imperial weapon to make up for it. The concoction of the Foundation Dissolution Pill was extremely complex, and it also required a sliver of power from the alchemist's celestial foundation, which directly affected the quality of the completed pill. Even Ling Han had to be very careful, even if he had already rehearsed it many times in his mind. However, a drill was a drill. In the end, all of it was only plans, but he needed to execute these plans in real life. Failure, failure, failure. This was more difficult than Ling Han had imagined. He had actually failed 7 times in a row. To the Alchemy Emperor, this was an inconceivable feat. He adjusted his condition, and was not in a rush to begin concocting the 8th cauldron. Instead, he began to recall in his mind, summarizing his own shortcomings. After half an hour, Ling Han finally started again. This time, he was successful. 3 hours passed, and he revealed a smile. The concoction of the alchemical pill was close at hand. He suddenly snapped his fingers. Show, he shot out 7 flashes of power. This was the power of his celestial foundation, and was also the catalyst for the Foundation Dissolution Pill. It was extremely important. 7 flashes of power shot into the alchemical pills, causing the 7 alchemical pills to dance in the air like fairies. Ling Han focused his full attention. He was presently fusing the power of the celestial foundation with the medicinal effects. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds. The time was very short. Ling Han stretched out a hand, and the 7 alchemical pills were all taken into his palm. Pa pa pa. Applause rang out. Ling Han raised his head, only to see a woman in purple standing atop the wall. This woman looked to be in her early 20s. She was extremely beautiful and had a graceful figure. She stood at a high place, her dress fluttering in the wind, clinging tightly to her body, outlining her captivating curves. "Mrs. Ling Han asked. "My name is Lu Xuanyu," the woman said. "Are you the new arrival, Ling Han?" "I am." Ling Han nodded, still looking at her with a questioning expression. "What's the meaning of you standing on the wall of my courtyard?" Lu Xuanyu giggled and leaped down from the wall. "I'm really sorry." Smelling the fragrance of alchemical pills, I couldn't help but want to take a look. I really didn't expect that you are actually an alchemist as well. However, Ling Han was slightly apprehensive. He hadn't discovered when she had leaped onto the wall. Although he was fully focused on refining pills here, even so, no foundation-building tier cultivator could possibly deceive his divine sense. Ling Han still had that much confidence. Thus, there was only one possibility, and that was this Lu Xuanyu was not in the foundation-building tier. At least, she was in the cauldron-forging tier. "Thank you for the compliment." Ling Han smiled faintly. Yet Lu Xuanyu was very cordial. "You are too modest. Though there are a great many hostages here, and there is no shortage of those with astonishing natural talent in cultivation. But as far as I know, you are the only alchemist here." "All right." Ling Han nodded honestly and without reservations. His talent in alchemy was indeed amazing. Lu Xuanyu smiled beautifully. "You have just arrived, so you should not have much understanding of this place, so I have come to tell you." "All right." Lu Xuanyu gave Ling Han an introduction. There were a total of 23 hostages here, representing the 23 forces that were subordinate to the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. Some forces had already existed for tens of thousands of years, but there were also some forces that had just been established not too long ago. The Azure Dragon Majestic Empire allowed their subordinate forces to compete in private. For example, if another force appeared on the Celestial Sea Planet and destroyed the Chun clan, replacing them, then the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire wouldn't send troops to avenge the Chun clan. As long as that force obediently paid their tribute, then there wouldn't be any problem. Of course, this force definitely couldn't affect the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire's own rule. Otherwise, it would be unavoidable that they would be destroyed, just like the Chun clan's royal empire. In fact, they didn't do anything treasonous. It was only because the Meng clan felt that if this continued, the Chun clan might become uncontrollable, powerful enough to threaten the existence of the Meng clan. Because they were all hostages, the members of Jia Yuan Manor all united, and Lu Xuanyu was the captain of the hostage group. Ling Han, we're all living under someone else's roof, so we have to help each other, right? Lu Xuanyu asked in the end. Ling Han naturally agreed, and replied, yes. Lu Xuanyu cast a meaningful look at Ling Han. If you encounter any difficulties in future, remember to look for me. If the conditions permit, I will definitely help you resolve them. I'll keep that in mind. Lu Xuanyu left gracefully, while Ling Han stroked his chin, deep in thought. In a small place like the political hostage manor, the residents were actually uniting together to form their own forces. According to Lu Xuanyu, there were a total of 3 cauldron forging origin tier cultivators here. One was her, and the other 2 were Han Bing and Zhao Xiao. The others were only in the foundation building tier. It wasn't that the people here were weaker in talent, but rather that they usually wouldn't be hostages for more than 100 years. At that time, they would be replaced by new hostages, and it was extremely difficult to break through to the core formation tier. Those who could cultivate to this cultivation level were basically old monsters who were hundreds of years old, and those who could break through to the core formation tier before 100 years old probably wouldn't exceed 10 people per planet. Theoretically, Ling Han only had to stay here obediently for 100 years, and he would naturally be released after serving his sentence. But the problem was that he had to lose his freedom in this Jia Yuan manor for 100 years? What a joke. How could he leave? Ling Han naturally had no intention of becoming a hostage at all. He had only come here because there was a station of the Chang clan on the Moonlight planet. Furthermore, he could not leave, and could only depend on the large black dog to move on his behalf. This was too inconvenient, and Ling Han immediately thought of his alchemy skills. For a prodigy alchemist like him, he could become an esteemed guest no matter where he went. Thus, as long as his reputation was raised, it would not be a problem for him to leave this place. Undoubtedly, the Foundation dissolution pill was the best proof. Ling Han decided to concoct more Foundation dissolution pills. This not only represented wealth, but also symbolized status and identity. Thus, he had to calm down first. He didn't believe that the people from the political hostage manor had never had the chance to go out. Prisoners would go out for a walk, and in name they were the envoys of various forces, not prisoners. Ling Han continued to concoct alchemical pills. He had just concocted a cauldron, and his technique had not reached a state of perfection yet. There was still a lot of room for improvement. He was quite low-key, and did not leave his residence, concocting alchemical pills every day. The name of political hostage manor was an unofficial one. In reality, the residents of Jia Yuan Manor were the envoys of various forces. Thus, the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire naturally had to express its interest. Every month, they would provide Jia Yuan Manor with a large amount of cultivation resources, but the right to distribute them was in Lu Xuanyu's hands. As expected as a captain, she was not really doing this for the pleasure of helping others and uniting them. Instead, she possessed considerable power. I don't like the look of you, so what if I give you a little less? You can't even leave, so who are you going to complain to? Furthermore, the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire delivered cultivation resources every month, but Lu Xuanyu distributed them every day, so if one offended her, the speed of retaliation would also be very fast. A day passed, and Ling Han stopped concocting alchemical pills. Then, he opened the connection device. Recently, he had not been able to contact Brother Monkey. It should not be that he had turned off the connection device, but rather that he was adventuring in some mystery realm. Usually, in mystery realms, the galaxy network could not be connected. Ling Han sent a message to Brother Monkey as usual, and switched to the trading interface. He hung up the news of the sale of the Foundation dissolution pill, and then queued up to fight in the ranking battles. Almost in an instant, someone sent him a message. Fuck! Aren't you the guy who broke Origin's record? Why are you selling alchemical pills now? Pest, have you gone mad from wanting money? You want to sell fake alchemical pills to earn money? Numerous messages were sent over. Some were curious that Ling Han was actually doing the business of a peddler, while others questioned whether the alchemical pills that Ling Han was selling were real or fake. Could not be helped. Previously, the matter of tickets had already tagged Ling Han with the label of being greedy for money, and now seeing him selling alchemical pills, there would naturally be people who would be suspicious. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Was his credibility really that low? He added another line to the sales information. You can use Galaxy Network's delivery service. Return any fakes that you discover. This time, there were finally much fewer people who doubted him, but there were still a few scattered people who doubted him, and they did not believe him at all. Ling Han couldn't even be bothered to reply. He was selling foundation dissolution pills, so what need was there for him to beg others to buy them? After he put on an aloof attitude, a considerable number of people actually believed him. Moreover, with Galaxy Network as guarantor, if they really encountered a fake, they could still get their money back. Ling Han only accepted 10 orders, and then withdrew the orders for the sale of foundation dissolution pills. The rarer something was, the more valuable it would be. After all, he was the alchemy emperor, and the alchemical pills he took out would naturally have to be sold for an astronomical price. How could he sell them cheaply? That would be too embarrassing. Ling Han had the large black dog make another trip to the Chong clan's office to deliver goods. This postage fee was naturally borne by the buyer, but it was now frozen by Galaxy Network. If it was proven that Ling Han was selling fake goods, then not only would he not be able to sell the goods, he would also lose a huge sum in postage fees. After waiting for a while, he began the ranking battles. After 3 rounds, he had spent more than 4 hours. It was mainly because he had waited for too long. No wonder some prodigies didn't participate in the ranking battles. For those who weren't patient enough, this would drive them crazy from waiting. A night passed, and Ling Han cultivated as usual in the morning. After advancing into Celestial Path, one could actually cultivate at any time. It was just that the efficiency was the highest in the morning. In fact, it was 100 times more efficient than at other times. After he finished cultivating, Ling Han began to eat breakfast, planning to continue concocting alchemical pills later. Pong, pong, pong. At this moment, a knock sounded from outside. The servant went to open the door, but when he returned, he did not report who had come, but rather directly brought him in. Ling Han was instantly displeased. He hadn't decided whether to see the visitor or not, so how could he directly bring the person over? He turned to look at the person who had arrived. This was a young man with a domineering aura. He had a dignified appearance, and there was also an air of arrogance about him. They were all just hostages. Was there any need to be so overbearing? When he looked at the servant again, there was an obvious look of fear on his face. The young man was in the foundation building tier. If he forcefully barged in, even the servants wouldn't be able to stop him. You know how to concoct alchemical pills? The young man asked directly. My name is Tan Xianxia, and you can call me Brother Tan. If you need anything in the future, you can look for me. In this manner, I still have some face. I heard Sister Lu say that you have also concocted foundation dissolution pills. Give me a few and you can give me your Galaxy Network account. I will transfer the money to you later. If this person was more polite, Ling Han would still consider it. However, from the very beginning, he was already showing such a condescending attitude. Ling Han was displeased. Who are you? What Tan Xianxia? Do I know you? Ling Han smiled. Can I look for you for anything? Of course. Tan Xianxia nodded proudly. Ling Han nodded. All right, then I'll have to trouble Brother Tan to help me to leave this place immediately. Ha! Tan Xianxia's expression instantly froze. You want to leave this place? I wanted to. But the crux of the matter is this realistic? They were all hostages, and even if they had some ability, it would only be limited to a small place like Jiayuan Manor. Are you deliberately toying with me? His expression immediately darkened. Ling Han smiled faintly. Didn't you say yourself that you could help me with anything? Of course, even so, you can't make such an exorbitant demand. Tan Xianxia suppressed his anger. All right, I will now discuss business with you. 1 foundation dissolution pill for 10,000 Dao stones. Give me 10 of them. 10,000? Ling Han almost laughed in spite of himself. The market price of the foundation dissolution pill was 50,000 per pill, and there was no lack of buyers. For example, he had put up a price of 100,000 per pill on the Galaxy Network trading platform. But what was the result? There was no one bargaining at all, and it was directly bought at the first instant. You want to take it away with just 10,000 Dao stones? What a colossal joke. I'll offer 20,000 Dao stones for 1. I'll take however many you have, Ling Han replied. Ling Han. Tan Zhengjie raised his voice a notch higher. Don't think that there is anything special about being able to concoct alchemical pills. This is Jia Yuan Manor, and you are only a prisoner. You speak as if you're not. Ling Han shook his head. You? Tan Zhengjie pointed at Ling Han. I will give you one more chance. You have to know, if you offend me, you would not be able to move a single step here. Oh, you have that much ability? Ling Han asked with a smile. Tan Zhengjie declared proudly. The Vanguard planet that Sister Lu is from has been on good terms with the Dong Yuan planet that I am from for generations. Furthermore, they are in laws. Thus, if I say a few words to Sister Lu, I guarantee that you will not have a good time. Ling Han sighed and said, You're a man after all. So why don't you have any accomplishments at all? You still need a woman to stand up for you. Tan Zhengjie's face instantly flushed red. He appeared to be very furious. These words were really too hurtful. Humph! Do you think I can't deal with you? He asked coldly. Ling Han chuckled, shook his head, and said, It's really not that I'm looking down on you. But for someone like you, I can fight 10 single-handedly. Arrogant. You are really arrogant, Tan Zhengjie said coldly. Come out, and let's go to the battlefield for a spar. The battlefield was a place that was specifically used for martial arts and sparring in the Jiayuan manor, because the destructive power of the foundation building tier was too great. If they really went all out and sparred, this Jiayuan manor would be shattered in a few moves. There's no need to go to so much trouble. It's just a matter of stretching out a hand, Ling Han said with a smile. As expected, he stretched out a hand towards Tan Zhengjie. Impudence! Tan Zhengjie was furious. This brat was really arrogant, to actually dare to take the initiative to make a move on him. Furthermore, who did he think he was? He would be able to take him down in a few moves, so there was no need for him to even go to the battlefield. But he had just stretched out his hand, when his expression changed drastically. When Ling Han stretched out this hand, it was like the suppression of heaven and earth, causing him to actually feel that he was no match. This was too terrifying. They were both in the foundation building tier, so why was the gap between them so wide? He wanted to put his life on the line. If he exploded with power, he would at least shatter this courtyard. That way, he would attract the attention of others, and they would save him. However, when his power surged out, he shockingly discovered that his power was actually limited to a very small range. How was this possible? Though he was only in Heavenly Dao Foundation, even if he was facing an Ultimate Dao Foundation, it was impossible for him to have such a powerful suppressive ability. Could it be that he was in the Cauldron Forging tier? No, that was definitely impossible. He hurriedly shook his head in his mind. The aura that Ling Han was exuding was definitely only that of a foundation-building cultivator. It was impossible that he was a Cauldron Forging tier elite. However, they were both in the foundation-building tier, so how could the gap be so wide? How high was his ranking in the Galaxy Network? Top 10,000? Or even top 1,000 in fact? He had not even finished this thought when he was already captured by Ling Han. Ling Han carried him all the way to the main doors. Then, with a toss, Tan Zhengjie was thrown onto the ground. He did not even cast a second look, closed the doors and walked back. In future, without my permission, no one is allowed to enter, he said calmly to his 3 servants. This was the first time, so he would let it go for now. Yes, young Master Han. The 3 servants were all trembling. That was Tan Zhengjie, and he had actually been kicked out like a dog. This guy was really too awesome. However, young Master Han, that Tan Zheng one of the servants wanted to remind Ling Han of Tan Zhengjie's background. Yet when Ling Han glanced coldly at him, he immediately shut his mouth obediently, not daring to say another word. Outside the door, Xianxia got up, his face filled with fury and shame. He had actually been thrown out the door. This was a great humiliation. Though no one outside had witnessed his humiliating scene, Ling Han and his 3 servants had seen it, and he too would remember this scene forever. He definitely had to get his revenge. However, how was he supposed to get his revenge? Oh, that's right. The dazzling tournament will be held in 9 days' time. At that time, I will ask a few people to join forces to deal with him. Xianxia's eyes turned, and he had already thought of an idea. He chuckled coldly. So what if you are strong? I am no match for you in a one-on-one battle. But if I get 10 people to gang up on you, I don't believe that you won't collapse. Ling Han wasn't worried about Xianxia's revenge. This was the political hostage manner, so who would dare to mess around? Moreover, he did not take Xianxia seriously at all. In his eyes, what was Xianxia worth? 2 days later, Lu Xuanyu ran over again and told Ling Han to attend an event. 7 days later, the dazzling tournament will be held, she said. What is the dazzling tournament? Ling Han asked. Oh, this is an event organized by our Jia Yuan Manor. The main purpose is to promote everyone's friendship, Lu Xuanyu said with a smile. It's a competition for a colorful ball. Whoever can snatch it will be the winner. How much is the prize money? Ling Han asked again. Lu Xuanyu's expression involuntarily darkened. Are you a money grubber? I've already said that the main purpose is to promote the friendship between us. Why are you suddenly thinking about money? There is no prize money. She shook her head, then continued. However, the prize of the winner surpass all other treasures. Every time it is held, it would be fought over extremely fiercely. Oh, what is it? Ling Han's interest was piqued. Lu Xuanyu first kept him in suspense, and merely pursed her lips in a smile. After a while, she said, the person who finally wins the colorful ball will be able to leave Jia Yuan Manor and gain a day of freedom. A day's freedom? This sounded very pitiful and cheap. When had the value of a day of freedom surpassed all other treasures? However, for hostages like Ling Han, a day's freedom was a valuable prize. No wonder they would fight tooth and nail every time. Ling Han glanced at Lu Xuanyu. There were 3 cauldron forging tier cultivators in this Jia Yuan Manor, so who would be able to compete with the 3 of them? Though Ling Han was very confident in himself, he did not think that he could defeat a cauldron forging tier. This wasn't the werewolf high priest. In order to survive, he had gone all out. Furthermore, there had been a great many people helping at the time, impeding the attention of the werewolf high priest, which allowed the heavenly pattern jade to succeed. Under normal circumstances, no matter how freakish a foundation-building cultivator was, they wouldn't be able to rival a cauldron forging tier cultivator. Perhaps, after Ling Han had reached the ultimate Dao foundation, he could challenge the impossible. Lu Xuanyu smiled, shook her head and said, Don't worry. The 3 of us cauldron forging tier elites won't even participate. This made things easier. In the foundation building tier, Ling Han was invincible. However, Ling Han was pondering the hidden meaning of these words. For hostages like them, freedom was an incomparable luxury, even if it was only a short day. However, the 3 cauldron forging tier cultivators actually gave up such an opportunity. Why? This meant that they should have other channels to leave Jia Yuan Manor. Then, since this was an event hosted by hostages like them, what right did they have to obtain the right from the clan mansion to let the victor leave the manor? Interesting. Ling Han nodded and said, All right, I'll participate then. Lu Xuanyu smiled beautifully, then suddenly paused. Is there some kind of conflict between you and Xianxia? No, Ling Han pretended to be surprised. I have always been very concerned about the relationship between myself and my teammates, so how could there possibly be any conflict? That's good. Lu Xuanyu nodded, turned and left. Ling Han stroked his chin as he watched her leave. Lu Xuanyu had suddenly asked him if there was any conflict between him and Xianxia, so it was obvious that she was already aware of the enmity between him and Xianxia. After all, Xianxia kept calling her sister Lu, but Lu Xuanyu did not expose him. Why was that? Thinking about it, it should be related to his alchemy skills. An alchemist who could concoct the foundation dissolution pill, Ling Han's future prospects were definitely boundless. What Ling Han needed was only an opportunity. He would take the foundation dissolution pill and walk around, and he would definitely be able to form a network and soon be able to walk out of Jiayuan Manor. On the other side, the Empress, Lin Luo, and the others had also arrived at the Moonlight Planet. They had communicated with Ling Han through the Galaxy Network, and informed Ling Han of where they had settled down. They would think of a way to join some sects, and get themselves a legal identity. Theoretically speaking, they were all unregistered, and needed to use this to clear their name. Moreover, they couldn't always rely on Ling Han to obtain cultivation resources. One had to know that they were all true overlords in the Genesis world, and which of them wasn't extremely proud and arrogant. Ling Han waited patiently. He concocted alchemical pills every day, concocting at least 4 cauldrons a day, and had already saved up a great many foundation dissolution pills. Furthermore, the foundation dissolution pills that he had sold through the Galaxy Network had also gained the approval of those 10 customers. Thus, aside from the nickname of a money grubber, Ling Han also gained the title of a prodigy alchemist on the Galaxy Network, and this title was quite positive. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. The dazzling tournament was about to begin. There were a total of 20 foundation building cultivators in the Jiayuan Manor, and they were all participating in this competition. This naturally was set on the battlefield, and a colorful ball was placed right in the center. There were rules in the dazzling tournament. Firstly, one was not allowed to fly on a spirit tool, and was not allowed to leap over 30 meters in a single bound. Secondly, snatching the colorful ball did not mean that one had won, but rather had to be brought out of the battlefield. However, others could snatch it and could even destroy the colorful ball. Once the colorful ball was destroyed, the tournament would be paused, and a new one would be substituted before starting again. In principle, deliberate injury was not allowed, but since this was a contest, there would definitely be a fierce clash, and it was inevitable that they would suffer some injuries. Ling Han swept an eye over, and saw that Xianxia was presently looking at him coldly, killing intent seeping from him. Looks like this person had not learned his lesson, and still wanted to cause trouble. Whatever. Worst come to worst, he would just give him a beating. Lu Xuanyu, Han Bing, and Zhao Xiao had also come. The 3 of them had also taken on the role of referees, and were standing at 3 corners of the battlefield respectively. Begin! Lu Xuanyu waved her hand. Instantly, everyone rushed towards the center of the battlefield. There was presently a colorful ball of bright red there. Ling Han's speed was the fastest. He had no time to dawdle. Shwa! 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 His feet flew, and he was the first to arrive at the side of the colorful ball. Then he crouched down, and was just about to pick up the colorful ball. He shockingly discovered that the colorful ball seemed to have been rooted into the ground. If he forcefully pulled it up, this ball would definitely explode. This was made from very ordinary materials, so how could it withstand the power of a foundation-building cultivator? Formation technique. Ling Han came to his senses at the first instant. This colorful ball was protected by a formation. If he were to use brute force to retrieve it, the only result would be that the colorful ball would explode. That would be equivalent to having fought for nothing. He swept an eye over it, and saw that there were a few veined patterns glowing underneath the colorful ball. Instantly, multiple corresponding formation patterns appeared in his mind. This was a very simple formation. Even if it wasn't a formation master, he could still easily break through it because there were too many loopholes left behind. In truth, it was meant for others to break through the formation, and its purpose was only to drag out the time so that others could catch up to them and launch an attack. However, to Ling Han, this formation was too simple. It should be known that he had already crossed the threshold of formation master level, and could even set up formations with steps, so how long would it take to resolve this kind of practically child's play formation? He only stretched out a hand to touch it, and the light of the formation dimmed. The weak aura of heaven and earth was changed by him. Ling Han grabbed out at the air again. Xiao, the colorful ball, flew up by itself, and fell into his hand. This action took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. Merely less than a millisecond had passed. If Ling Han was willing, he could completely charge back, and it was guaranteed that no one would be able to stop him. However, on second thought, since Xianxia was unwilling to learn his lesson, he would teach him a lesson today. Lu Xuanyu and the other two cauldron forging tier elites all exclaimed in surprise. Being able to unravel the formation on the colorful ball was really too easy. Anyone could do it, but to undo the formation with a single wave of their hand, wasn't that a little too easy? Unless Ling Han was a formation master. How was this possible? Wasn't this guy a prodigy alchemist? Who would be freakish enough to be skilled in both formations and alchemy? Right at this moment, Xianxia and the others had already charged over. Ling Han's left hand gripped the colorful ball, and he placed it behind his back. He faced 19 aggressive opponents all by himself. Xianxia showed a hint of ruthlessness. In his plan, he would ask his other 9 companions to join forces with him and gang up on Ling Han together. However, if Ling Han didn't get the colorful ball, it would be too obvious if the 10 of them went to fight a person that didn't have a colorful ball. Now everything was fine. Ling Han had obtained the colorful ball, so even if they ganged up on him, it was reasonable. The only difference was that the previous ganging up on him was for the sake of snatching the colorful ball, but now, they were naturally targeting Ling Han himself. Charge! Xianxia roared loudly, and was the first to charge over. Ling Han shook his head and said, "You still haven't learnt your lesson. How stupid." Shio. The others also attacked one after another, all of them aiming for Ling Han. Ling Han was completely unafraid. He had a considerable number of ways to insta-kill these 19 people in an instant, but after some thought, he activated the starlight screen, and then began his counterattack against Xianxia. He suppressed his power for a while, and showed that he was just barely able to suppress Xianxia. Pong, pong, pong. Over a dozen attacks landed on the starlight screen, yet they were completely unable to penetrate the starlight screen. Meanwhile, Ling Han's counterattack was something that Xianxia couldn't withstand. He continued to retreat continuously, appearing to be in an extremely sorry state. Xianxia felt extremely vexed. Why was he only targeting him? He just barely managed to parry, but he was completely unable to withstand Ling Han's attacks. One punch after another landed on his body, causing him to feel extreme pain. "Interesting," Zhao Xiao said calmly. There was a sliver of a strange light in his eyes. Was the secret technique released by Ling Han a cultivation technique or a rare treasure? If it was a rare treasure, what level would it be? If it was a 1-star celestial tool, he naturally would not take it to heart. It was no longer suitable for him, but if it was a 2-star celestial tool or even a higher-level celestial tool, his heart would naturally throb wildly. And if it was a cultivation technique, then he would use all means necessary to obtain it. The strength of one's own body surpassed the strength of external objects. For example, in the ranking battles of the Galaxy Network, no treasure could be relied on. Even if he had an imperial weapon, it was useless. Hee. Han Bing also smiled. His thoughts were more or less the same as Zhao Zhao's. Even Lu Xuanyu was very surprised. She only knew that Ling Han was an alchemy prodigy and could concoct foundation dissolution pills. Furthermore, he was not weak in martial arts either, and could even suppress Xianxia. However, when she saw Ling Han's starlight screen, she was still extremely shocked. This guy seemed to have mastered an incredibly awesome cultivation technique. She sneered internally. Since he had entered into Jia Yuan Manor, it was equivalent to falling into her hands, and there was no way he could escape. Pong, pong, pong. The attacks transformed into brilliant light that continued to strike the starlight screen. However, even though the starlight screen was on the verge of collapse, it didn't shatter at all. One couldn't help but sigh at the tenacity of its vitality. This rendered the people who were ganging up on him speechless. They only felt that Ling Han was like a turtle shell. No matter how many of them there were, and how explosive their attacks were, they were completely helpless. Xianxia was even more miserable. Others could only feel depressed because they were unable to blast through Ling Han's defenses, but he was constantly being beaten by Ling Han. Every punch and palm strike landed on his flesh, and the pain was agonizing. Finally, he could no longer bear it, and turned to flee. He was done fighting, all right? He wanted to flee? Ling Han, on the other hand, chuckled. He shot forwards like an arrow and gave Xianxia a violent beating. Though he had only used his right hand, the speed at which he delivered his punches was even faster than the speed at which most people swung their fists continuously. Every punch landed heavily on Xianxia's body. Pieces of cloth flew in the air, and Xianxia's clothes were forcefully torn apart by Ling Han. This is called armor penetration, Ling Han said with a smile. Armor penetration? When everyone heard this, they all had strange expressions. Armor penetration shouldn't be something that could break through one's opponent's defenses, such as armor, battle armor, and other defensive items. You shattered his clothes, and this was called armor penetration as well? Xianxia released a terrible scream of shame. He had actually been beaten naked by Ling Han in public. What kind of humiliation was this? Tisk? TSK. TSK. Someone's eyes swept over his crotch, and couldn't help but look surprised. This was a colossal creature. Ling Han also felt that it was a little blinding, so he raised a foot. Pong! His foot landed on Xianxia's behind, kicking the latter out of the battlefield. He turned around and looked at the others. Who was the one who hit me the hardest just now? Everyone was astounded. This guy withstood their firepower and forcibly beat Xianxia to the point of tearing his clothes apart and leaving the arena in shame, and now he had his eyes on them. Who could bear that? This was a monster. Ling Han's eyes swept over them, and all of them revealed expressions of fear. If they were targeted by Ling Han, they would be in deep trouble. You bastard, you've already gotten the colorful ball? So why aren't you leaving quickly? You! Ling Han pointed at a person. No, it wasn't me. That person's face turned green with fear, and he hurriedly turned around and fled. I won't fight anymore, all right? You are deluding yourself. Ling Han caught up to him with a single step and gave him a good beating. After he had had his fun, he turned to look at the others, and instantly those people had all turned pale with fear. You're fucking invincible, and your skin is as thick as can be. How am I supposed to fight you? Without another word, they all turned around and fled. Ling Han caught up with one of them, grabbed hold of one, and thrashed them, but the others had all fled. You guys are too naive. With a paw, Ling Han crushed the colorful ball. According to the rules, the tournament had to be restarted. Fuck. Everyone was about to break down. At this moment, everyone's hearts were about to collapse. You are too fucking ruthless, aren't you? Hadn't thrashed them enough, so he deliberately tore the colorful ball and started again? Fuck, this was really not just a bit black-hearted. However, the rules were the rules. If the colorful ball exploded, this round would be equivalent to having been for nothing. They would have to start again. Everyone looked as if they had eaten dead children, their expressions ugly to the extreme. Even Lu Xuanyu and the others bore strange expressions. The victor himself had crushed the colorful ball. It was only today that such a strange event had happened. Fine, let's start again. The dazzling tournament began again, but not one person walked into the battlefield. Who wanted to be beaten? Were they stupid? Ling Han crossed his arms behind his back and slowly walked forwards. His appearance was extremely aggravating. He was basically mocking all of them, but no matter how much they hated him, so what? Which of them could match Ling Han? Sigh. It's really lonely to be invincible. Ling Han shook his head, walked into the middle of the battlefield, and picked up the colorful ball. Then he slowly walked back. Everyone was furious, especially Xianxia. This time he had been beaten harshly. The old grudge had been added onto the new grudge. 1 step, 2 steps, though Ling Han was walking slowly, the battlefield was only so big. After a few minutes, he still walked out. The victor was Ling Han. This result was the same as the last time. But if this happened again, everyone would grit their teeth in hatred, wanting to swallow Ling Han whole and skin him alive. Congratulations, Ling Han, for winning this competition, Lu Xuanyu said with a smile. There was a meaningful look in her eyes as she looked at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled at the people around him. Thank you for your generosity. Being generous, your sister. If I could beat you, I would definitely skin you alive. Everyone was already in a bad mood in the first place, and when they saw Ling Han mocking them, they were all furious. They felt like how could there be such a toxic person in this world? Ling Han turned around and asked Lu Xuanyu, "Captain, when can I go out?" "Tomorrow." Ling Han nodded and strode off. Hee. This person seems to be a bit of a troublemaker. Zhao Xiao walked over and looked at Ling Han's receding back. "Very unruly," Han Bing said as well. Lu Xuanyu showed a smile filled with confidence. "I will make him do as I say." When these words fell, Zhao Xiao and Han Bing revealed jealous expressions at the same time, their expressions extremely strange. Zhao Xiao couldn't help but say, "Xuanyu, that's merely a foundation-building tier cultivator. Give him a little lesson, and he'll listen obediently." "That's right. To be more realistic, this place is a prison. As long as no one is killed, who would care about a hostage from another country?" Han Bing nodded as well. "Let me deal with him first." Lu Xuanyu shook her head. "Nothing good comes out of forceful persuasion. That guy is an alchemy prodigy, so he must be arrogant and domineering. If we coerce him, his heart must be resistant, so how could he possibly do things seriously?" But Han Bing still wanted to persuade her further. "I know what I'm doing," Lu Xuanyu said calmly. Han Bing and Zhao Xiao did not speak further, but there was a hint of hatred in their expressions. It was unknown what they had to hate Ling Han for. This night, Ling Han was slightly excited. Although he had only entered Jia Yuan Manor for a few days, this was prison, so he naturally felt a sense of repression. The night passed, and after Ling Han finished cultivating, he immediately walked towards the main doors. This time, the guard did not stop him. Instead, he said, "You must return before midnight. Otherwise, we will report this to the clan mansion and place you on the wanted list as a fugitive." Ling Han nodded. This was the rules, and he had no intention of arguing with such a minor character. He strode out of Jia Yuan Manor. He was still under the same sky, but after walking out of the high walls, Ling Han's mood suddenly relaxed. Time was short, and Ling Han had a clear goal. He did not reunite with the Empress and the others, but rather headed directly to the St. Pill Hall. This was the Moonlight Planet's holy land of alchemy, which gathered the highest-level alchemists of the entire planet. Meanwhile, the senior elder of the St. Pill Hall also had an official rank bestowed on him by the Azure Dragon Majestic Empire. He was a dignified first-rank duke, and this was the highest official rank that non-royalty could obtain. Naturally, this boosted the status of the St. Pill Hall to an extremely high level. Because this three-herbs elder was an Earth-tier high-grade alchemist, even sect master-level grade elites had to ask him to concoct alchemical pills for them, so his status was naturally revered. In the city, movement techniques naturally couldn't be used, and flying on a tool was even more impossible. This would be seen as great disrespect, so Ling Han walked on foot. In any case, his speed was also very fast. 20 minutes later, he arrived at the St. Pill Hall. This was a glorious group of buildings, occupying an extremely large area. There were multiple towers standing tall, some silver and some gold. Ling Han found out from the Galaxy Network that the Silver Tower was where human-tier alchemists lived, and the Golden Tower was where Earth-tier alchemists lived. Whether it was martial arts, alchemy, formations, or so on, the hierarchy was strict. He strode into the St. Pill Hall. After entering, there was a large hall, and there was a large volume of alchemical pills for sale. The shop assistants here were all very proud. Though Ling Han was looking around, not one of them asked him if he needed alchemical pills for certain areas, looking like it was up to him whether he wanted to buy them or not. Ling Han had no intention of communicating with the staff either. He directly passed through the lobby, planning to enter the area further inside. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed. Immediately, someone stepped out to stop him. Ling Han smiled. "I want to be certified as an alchemist." "You?" That person looked at Ling Han in surprise, because Ling Han was too young. He looked to be in his early 20s. How could there be such a young alchemist? However, the alchemist certification was open to all. As long as you prepared your own ingredients, the St. Pill Hall would provide an alchemy chamber. "All right, come with me." That person led Ling Han towards the back. "Don't look around. There are a great many alchemists here, and they very much dislike being stared at. That would be very rude, he reminded. Ling Han nodded in understanding. They arrived at a very large room. There were a great many people inside, and they were all staring at a wall. This was a projection wall, and there was an alchemist presently concocting alchemical pills. Ling Han could confirm with a single glance that this cauldron of alchemical pills was about to be successfully concocted. The person who had led Ling Han in hurriedly ran to the front, muttering to someone. After a while he returned and said, "Just wait here. Someone will arrange for you to be certified." "All right." Ling Han sat down and closed his eyes to rest. He was completely uninterested in the alchemy process that was underway. "TSK, what are you acting for? You've already come all the way here, and you're actually still resting with your eyes closed," someone sneered. Ling Han was astonished. "Am I bothering you by closing my eyes to rest?" "That's right. Our St. Pill Hall's #1 prodigy, Luo Jun, is trying to break through to become an alchemist today, and has deliberately invited everyone to come and observe, and you are actually not taking it seriously," another person said to Ling Han, his tone slightly stern. Luo Jun was only 29 years old this year, but he was talented and intelligent. In 15 years, he had advanced from an elementary-level alchemy apprentice to a high-level alchemy apprentice, and now he was even breaking through to become a human-tier low-grade alchemist. This natural talent was practically astonishing. And now Luo Jun was willing to let everyone observe his alchemy techniques, and you actually closed your eyes to rest? Was he showing off or deliberately mocking them? He had just closed his eyes and rested for a while, and the issue had actually risen to such a height? Ling Han shook his head and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people. However, even if he didn't drop down to the same level as these people wouldn't give up. Moreover, the news spread like wildfire, and many people knew that there was someone here who actually didn't take Luo Jun seriously and closed his eyes to rest while he was being certified as an alchemist. "Since you have come here, and you are not properly watching others concoct alchemical pills, wasn't that a deliberate mockery? Who is this person? I don't know him. Perhaps it's some newly promoted apprentice that still doesn't know Luo Jun's name, right?" And that must be the case. Everyone nodded one after another, certain that Ling Han must be some rookie that had just advanced into the threshold of alchemy, and did not even recognize an incredibly dazzling new star like Luo Jun. Ling Han acted as if he had not heard anything. Did he need to take the words of others to heart? Moreover, once he began concocting alchemical pills later, he would be able to slap their faces with reality. It's done. Luo Jun has formed his alchemical pill. Heavens! A 29-year-old human-tier low-grade alchemist. This is a new record. And previously, the youngest alchemist on the Moonlight planet was 31 years old. This time, not only has he broken a new record, he has also pushed the limit of the youngest alchemist to the level of 20s in age. As expected of Luo Jun, he will definitely have boundless future prospects. Everyone exclaimed in shock, all of them incredibly excited, as if they were the ones who were concocting alchemical pills inside. At this moment, the alchemy chamber opened, and a young man walked out. It was Luo Jun, who had just been concocting alchemical pills. "Congratulations, Alchemist Luo. Congratulations. He'll definitely become a grandmaster in the future." There was a round of congratulations, and everyone squeezed in. At this time, they naturally had to show themselves. If Luo Jun remembered them, they may be able to worm their way into being friends with this prodigy alchemist. "Ha ha! Brother Luo, congratulations." There was a long bout of laughter, and a man strode in. He was striding and leaping like a dragon, exuding an astonishing aura. Hiss, little Marquis Tang Yen. He's the son of the Tang clan, a prodigy of martial arts. When he was born, he attracted the senses of heaven and earth. He's an innate divine physique. The Tang clan is a force on the level of spirit transformation, true lord. Furthermore, they are deeply favored by His Majesty. Tang Yen has been conferred the title of Marquis since birth. Though it is because he has an innate divine physique, it is also because the Tang clan is presently flourishing in imperial favor. Everyone exclaimed in shock. This young man that was walking over was really too extraordinary. A thought flashed in Ling Han's head. The prodigy of the Tang clan? He also walked up. Of course, he was not heading for Tang Yen. He was going to immediately begin the verification of Alchemist. Who is this brat? What are you squeezing in for? Some people still didn't recognize Ling Han, and when they saw him force his way forwards, they were all very displeased. Ling Han squeezed forward. Most of the people here were foundation-building cultivators, so who could stop him? "Can I begin?" he asked. There were 3 human-tier alchemists in charge of witnessing here, and they naturally knew that there was another person who wanted to be certified as an alchemist. The expressions on their faces were all not very pleased. Fuck, they had just stared fixedly for an alchemist verification for 3 hours, and he still wanted them to continue? However, for such a young guy, it was very likely that his cauldron would soon explode and fail. "All right, begin." One of them nodded. "What pill will you concoct?" another person asked. Ling Han smiled faintly. "Foundation dissolution pill." Instantly, the surroundings fell silent, and then raucous laughter arose. Ha ha! This was really too funny. An alchemist that had not even advanced into the human tier actually said that he wanted to concoct the foundation dissolution pill? Where did he get such courage from? Tang Yen and Luo Jun had already walked some distance away, so they did not hear Ling Han's words. They only discovered the laughter of the masses, which made Tang Yen appear slightly curious. He asked, "What's going on?" "Oh, there's an idiot here to verify that he's a human-tier low-grade alchemist. He actually said he wanted to concoct the foundation dissolution pill." The alchemy apprentice beside him replied with a smile. Luo instantly snickered. This was the foundation dissolution pill. Even he didn't dare to think about it, because prodigies who could concoct the foundation dissolution pill could possibly become heaven-tier alchemists. "Just grandstanding." "Brother Tang, let's go," Luo Jun said. Yet Tang Yan's interest was piqued. There is no harm in taking a look. Since he had already said so, Luo Jun naturally could not say anything else. Though he was a prodigy alchemist, the extent of his prodigy talent was completely incomparable to Tang Yan's background. Thus, in their interactions, he was naturally in a disadvantageous position and needed to submit to Tang Yan's will. Meanwhile, the alchemy apprentice beside him continued to add fuel to the fire as he recounted how Ling Han had purposefully closed his eyes to rest just then. He had deliberately drawn animosity toward Ling Han. Luo Jun's expression was dark, but he said calmly, "Everyone has their own freedom. No one begs him to watch." Tang Yen laughed loudly. This guy seems to have quite a personality. Luo Jun had not thought that Tang Yen would make such a comment about Ling Han. He faltered for a moment, then answered sheepishly, "Yes, that's right." There was a ball of fire burning in his heart, and he wanted nothing more than to drag Ling Han out and give him a good beating. Who was he? The prodigy alchemist Luo Jun, the person who had created the record for the youngest alchemist on Moonlight Planet. You, a nameless nobody, actually dare to be so condescending. On the other side, Ling Han also began to concoct alchemical pills. There was a ready-made formation and alchemy cauldron here, which saved Ling Han some trouble. He stimulated the formation. Then, with a wave of his hands, medicinal ingredients were thrown into the alchemy cauldron. Boom! The power of heaven and earth surged over. For Ling Han, he had been concocting foundation dissolution pills all these days, so he couldn't be too proficient. His movements were like flowing water, incredibly smooth. Outside, everyone had initially wanted to watch a joke, but as they watched, they were dumbfounded. Fuck, so smooth? Are you really here to be certified as an alchemist? Are you sure that you are not a veteran alchemist that has long since crossed over into this threshold? But looking at Ling Han's expression, everyone shook their heads. He was so young, and was definitely even younger than Luo Jun. How could he possibly be an experienced alchemist? Everyone couldn't help but turn to look at Luo Jun. This person had just created the record for the youngest alchemist on Moonlight Planet. How could it be that it would be broken in the blink of an eye? If such a thing really happened, then Luo Jun would become a joke. In future, he would also become nothing more than a background for another, and it might be that this story would be passed down through the ages. This was the shortest-lived record holder in history, and it was a humiliating sight. Luo Jun's expression was extremely ugly. If Ling Han had really succeeded, to say nothing else, just the fact that he had concocted the Foundation Dissolution Pill alone was enough to insta-kill him into dust. Foundation Dissolution Pill, it was a sure bet that he could become an Earth-tier high-grade alchemist. Throughout history, there has never been an exception, and there was even a portion of them that became heaven-tier alchemists, who would be known for generations. Meanwhile, Tang Yen looked expectant. If Ling Han could really concoct the Foundation Dissolution Pill, he was very willing to become friends with Ling Han. He did not know how to concoct alchemical pills, but looking at Ling Han's proficient handiwork, he was naturally filled with confidence in Ling Han. This person may really succeed. An hour passed, and Ling Han was still refining in an orderly manner. 2 hours later, the situation was still the same. Everyone could no longer sit still. This was really the rhythm of an alchemical pill being completed. Fuck, they had still been mocking Ling Han just now. But now that they had turned around, were they about to be slapped in the face? Can he really succeed? Someone mumbled. If he really succeeds, this guy will become the youngest alchemist in history. Luo Jun hasn't even warmed up this position, and he's already giving it up? Where did such a monster come from? I don't believe that such a prodigy would appear out of thin air. Everyone was about to go crazy. Though there was a large number of alchemy disciples in the St. Pill Hall, there were only a few hundred alchemists. It was clear how difficult it was to become an alchemist. Thus, every alchemy disciple that had hopes of advancing to become an alchemist was well known, and their names could be counted on the fingers of one's hand. There were just a few of them. Now, however, a completely unfamiliar guy had suddenly appeared, and it just so happened that he was overwhelmingly freakish. From the very beginning, he was concocting a Foundation Dissolution Pill, showing the potential of becoming a heaven-tier alchemist. Tang Yan's interest was piqued even further. He was the son of the Tang clan, and it was destined that he would inherit the position of clan leader of the Tang clan in the future. Thus, he had long since placed himself in the shoes of the future clan leader of the Tang clan, Ling Han. In his eyes, Ling Han was a rare commodity. He didn't understand alchemy, but he wasn't deaf, so he could naturally hear the words of others. He knew what concocting the Foundation Dissolution Pill meant. If the Tang clan could be on good terms with an Earth-tier high-grade alchemist, or even a heaven-tier alchemist, they would naturally be even steadier and stronger. The reason why he wanted to be on good terms with Luo Jun was naturally because of this. Time continued to pass, and Ling Han was still stabilizing the situation. There was no sign of the furnace exploding at all. Luo Jun's expression was livid. He had a premonition that Ling Han would really succeed. He was filled with hatred. For a prodigy like you, which planet couldn't you go to? No matter where you went, you would be able to become a prodigy, an incredibly dazzling star, yet he just had to causing his glory to go from brightness to dimness. In fact, he was about to become a joke. Why? He clenched his fists tightly. If he could, he would definitely charge into the alchemy chamber and kill Ling Han. 3 hours were about to pass, and Ling Han suddenly stretched out a hand to grab at empty air. Instantly, 8 alchemical pills floated into the air. He immediately injected the power of the Celestial Foundation into them, and then fused them in. This was the final step of concocting the Foundation Dissolution Pill. For others, this was a difficulty in concocting the Foundation Dissolution Pill, but for Ling Han, this was a piece of cake, easily completed. The pill is completed. The cauldron didn't explode. It really succeeded. Foundation Dissolution Pill. A prodigy, a supreme prodigy. Everyone exclaimed in shock, as if they had seen a ghost. In truth, that was indeed the case. In the history of the Moonlight Planet, there had really never appeared one that could concoct the Foundation Dissolution Pill. By the time some alchemist had the ability to concoct it, he would have already surpassed the Foundation Building tier in terms of cultivation level. Without the power of the Foundation Building tier, how could he concoct the Foundation Dissolution Pill? This was unprecedented, and was extremely awesome. When Ling Han came out, a dead silence fell. Everyone looked at him with a sliver of admiration. No one was an idiot. Though Ling Han and Luo Jun had both become alchemists for the first time, and had broken the record for the youngest alchemist, the comparison was very clear. Ling Han was younger than Luo Jun, and Ling Han had concocted the Foundation dissolution pill, and could at least become an Earth-tier high-grade alchemist in the future. Who else would dare to offend Ling Han? Congratulations! A super genius, he's too young. There's a chance he'll become a heaven-tier alchemist in the future. Everyone praised him one after another, daring to say such disgusting words. They had completely forgotten how they had previously mocked Ling Han. Congratulations! An alchemist clasped his hands and said in congratulations to Ling Han. I still don't know your name. Ling Han. The alchemist nodded, then asked, and where did alchemist Ling come from? Jia Yuan Manor. Ling Han smiled faintly. Everyone was stunned upon hearing this. No wonder they had never heard of Ling Han before. It was clear that his natural talent in alchemy was absolutely terrifying, but they had never heard of him, and that was because Ling Han was a hostage of Jia Yuan Manor. Yet Luo Jun's eyes lit up. Immediately, he walked forwards and exclaimed harshly, How dare you? You are clearly a hostage, yet actually dare to come out without permission. This is practically treason. This was a very big crime. If Ling Han was really implicated, then not only would Ling Han not be able to become an alchemist, he would not be able to become an alchemy grandmaster in future, and would even be executed. Ling Han glanced at this person. Was there any need to be so resentful? His limelight had been stolen, so what need was there for him to be so resentful? How petty, how intolerant. Ling Han shook his head and said, Don't rush to pin the blame on others. Firstly, I am an envoy from the Dark North Nation, yet you keep saying that I am a hostage. Are you stoking the flames of anger in the relations between the two majestic empires? In my opinion, you are the one who has committed treason, and should be punished for such motives. Speaking of bickering, who had he ever been afraid of? These words caused Luo Jun to be stupefied. That was because the words political hostage was spoken in private. On the surface, the people of the political hostage manor were all envoys from various nations. Furthermore, they were not called political hostage manor, but rather Jia Yuan Manor in all seriousness. He had only spoken in a moment of carelessness. Who asked this matter to be too ridiculous? A hostage was actually an alchemy prodigy? Secondly, I didn't run out on my own volition. Instead, I walked out in broad daylight. What is it? I'm not a prisoner. So can't I come out for a stroll or something? Ling Han said slowly. He did not weaken his aura at all. I am here as envoy, and my status is even higher than yours. You're spouting nonsense. Luo Jun came back to his senses and immediately rebuked. He didn't believe that anyone could come out of the political hostage manor. Who didn't know that it was a prison? Grandmaster Ling, is it? Tang Yen walked over, and with a casual push, Luo Jun was pushed aside. He was at Cauldron Forging tier, so how could Luo Jun, a foundation-building cultivator, possibly rival him? The reason why Ling Han had begun to verify his status as an alchemist so quickly was naturally so that he could attract Tang Yan's attention. He smiled. I dare not be called Grandmaster. You can just call me Ling Han. My name is Tang Yan, and you can also directly call me by my name. Tang Yan appeared very amiable, but if these words were heard by his friends, their eyeballs would definitely pop out of their sockets. Who did not know that Tang Yan was proud and arrogant? It was difficult to befriend him, and it was even more difficult to become a friend that could gain his approval. Yet now, Tang Yan actually had Ling Han address him directly by name. This was the kind of treatment that only his closest friends would receive. How could it not be frightening? But in Tang Yan's eyes, this was a very natural thing to do. That was because Ling Han's lowest accomplishment would be Earth-tier high-grade alchemist, at least. This was completely equivalent to elites of sect master level, or even slightly superior to that. That was because there were really too few alchemists at this level. There was only one such alchemist on Moonlight Planet. All the sect master level elites would have to ask Three Herbs Elder for help when they needed him to concoct alchemical pills for them. If the Tang clan could make such a friend, the significance would naturally be extraordinary. Furthermore, Earth-tier high-grade alchemist was Ling Han's lowest accomplishment. If he could take another step further and become a heaven-tier alchemist, then no matter where he was in the universe, Ling Han would still be greatly respected. So, how could Tang Yen not be polite? Ling Han smiled faintly. No problem. You really are from the Jia Yuan Manor? Tang Yen was still in slight disbelief. What force would be so willing to hand over an alchemy prodigy as hostage? It should be known that a genius that could concoct the Foundation dissolution pill would at least be able to become an Earth-tier high-grade alchemist in the future, and what kind of concept was this kind of existence? Even a sect master grade elite had to treat him as an esteemed guest. This was truly strange and completely baffling. Indeed, if Ling Han was really just an ordinary alchemist, then he would definitely be protected by Chun Fengyan at all costs. Even if he had to hand over his own son as a hostage, he could not possibly hand Ling Han over. An alchemist with boundless future prospects had too great an influence on a force. However, who told Ling Han to have such a powerful identity? He was Chun Fengyan's uncle. If he said he wanted to come here, would Chun Fengyan dare to stop him? Wouldn't he be afraid that Brother Monkey would come back and beat him to the point of doubting life? Ling Han nodded. That's right. I only arrived about 10 days ago. Which planet did you come from? Celestial Sea Planet. Oh, Tang Yen nodded. As it turned out, it was that declining planet. The natives had just stepped onto the path of cultivation. If it was not for the fact that the criminals that were originally imprisoned had all escaped, this planet would still be in a state of confusion about cultivation. He thought for a moment, then said solemnly, Don't worry, I will definitely have you brought out of Jia Yuan Manor as soon as possible. What Ling Han wanted was precisely these words from him. He did not deliberately try to be polite, but rather nodded, Thank you. The two of them exchanged a smile, and there was a kind of tacit understanding between them. Tang Yen immediately said what Ling Han wanted, and Ling Han didn't pretend to be polite either. Although thanking him was simple, how could it be that Tang Yen wanted to listen to Ling Han's tirade? What he wanted was Ling Han's favor. While Ling Han was still only a human-tier low-grade alchemist, he wanted to lay the foundations of their friendship, especially when Ling Han was presently in dire straits. If he lent him a helping hand now, the significance would naturally be different. The significance of sending coal in the snow and adding icing on the cake were completely different. A rookie alchemist had concocted the Foundation dissolution pill. This naturally alerted the entire St. Pill Hall. No matter what level of alchemist it was, as long as he was in the St. Pill Hall, they all came out upon hearing the news and congratulated Ling Han. Though Ling Han was presently only a human-tier low-grade alchemist, Ling Han's future prospects were too bright, and they had no choice but to swallow their pride. Ling Han didn't put on airs. Firstly, he wasn't that kind of person, and secondly, he only had high potential. However, there were many people in this world with high potential who died early. Thus, it was best to keep a low profile because there would always be those who were short-sighted. Even if they didn't have any enmity with him, he would still step on others out of jealousy. Thus, before he had powerful strength, he had to keep a low profile. Conversely, Ling Han had concocted the Foundation dissolution pill right off the bat. In fact, this was already extremely high profile. If it weren't for the fact that it concerned his freedom, he actually didn't want to expose it. Wouldn't it be better to silently make a fortune? In this manner, Ling Han only managed to deal with all of them by night. And this was still because Tang Yen was speaking up for him from the sidelines. Otherwise, he would probably be busy until late at night. Ling Han made an agreement with Tang Yen. After a few days, Tang Yen would go to Jia Yuan Manor to visit him. It was not that Ling Han was putting on airs, but rather that he only had one day of freedom. How was he supposed to meet Tang Yen? Heh, we'll meet again some other day, Tang Yen said with a chuckle. He was in an extremely good mood. Ling Han nodded. See you another day. He exited the St. Pill Hall and returned to Jia Yuan Manor. He had to return before midnight, or he would be considered as disobeying the laws of the nation. As he walked, he suddenly saw someone staring at him from the corner of his eye. He didn't take it to heart. After all, he was a rising star of alchemy, so it was normal for others to recognize him. However, that person's behavior was a little strange. After glancing at Ling Han a few times, he suddenly turned around and ran. Very soon, there was no sign of him. Ling Han couldn't help but mumble internally, "This reaction isn't right. Forget about it." He would return to the political hostage manor first. After walking for a while, he entered into a small street. Because it was already late in the night, and because it was remote here, everyone closed the main doors, appearing to be extremely quiet. There was not a single person in sight. Ling Han was naturally unafraid. He strode forwards, but after taking a few steps, he stopped. Xiao, a figure rapidly pursued him from behind, leaping over his head, and landed in front of him, blocking his path. Ling Han activated his eye technique, and with a single glance, he immediately understood the cultivation level of his opponent. He was merely an ultimate Dao foundation. "I've finally found you," the person said balefully through gritted teeth. Ling Han was surprised. "I killed your father? My father is perfectly fine." That person immediately rebuked. "Then I have killed your son?" Ling Han asked again. "I still haven't had children yet." That person had been led astray again. Ling Han shook his head. "Since there is no hatred of killing a son or your father, I can't understand why you look like you want nothing more than to skin me alive." "Humph. My surname is Pang," that person declared harshly. "Oh." Ling Han finally understood. Previously, when he had been concocting the 5 elements karmic pill, he had killed a great many members of the Pang clan, and had even killed a foundation-building cultivator of the Pang clan. He broke into a grin. "That genius prodigy from your clan? What was his name again?" But after ingesting the 5 elements karmic pill, he advanced into foundation-building tier? It would have been fine if Ling Han hadn't said this. But once he did, that person became even more furious. The Pang clan Gad spared no expense and paid an astonishing price to gather the ingredients for the 5 elements karmic pill. In the end, after concocting it, Pang Yunfei ingested it. Not only did it not allow Pang Yunfei to advance further, it even caused a huge problem. They looked for alchemists to study the dregs of the medicine, and finally found the source of the problem. There was a material that was not up to standard in quality, and it was precisely the water element crystal that they had forcefully obtained. They were extremely depressed. In order to get a small advantage, they had bought the water element crystal at an extremely low price, thinking that they had taken full advantage. Who would have thought that this would lead to disaster? Now, the Pang clan had paid a huge price, and Pang Yunfei's body was in great trouble. Who was he going to complain to? If this person knew that the main culprit was the Ling Han in front of him, he would probably want to eat him alive. "Die!" That person moved aggressively, grabbing out at Ling Han. Ling Han shook his head and said with a smile, "Before you attacked, did you forget to investigate my strength first? You are only in the foundation building tier," the person said in disdain. Was there any need to investigate? He understood with a single glance. Boom, his hand had already grabbed out, but in order not to alert others, he compressed his power as much as possible, and practically did not seep out any sliver. Otherwise, the houses here would all collapse in an instant. Ling Han stretched out a hand and grabbed out at the other's wrist. "You bit off more than you can chew." That person smirked coldly, but his expression changed drastically in an instant, because his wrist had really fallen obediently into Ling Han's hands. He struggled for a moment, and felt as if his hand had been cast together with top-grade divine metal, and could not be pulled out at all. How was this possible? He was numb with shock, and felt an indescribable fear. "Do you regret it now?" Ling Han asked. That person gritted his teeth, and did not answer. He did indeed regret it. He had only thought that Ling Han had just entered the foundation building tier and was an easy target to bully. After receiving the news, he had come alone. He had not thought that he would actually be no match for Ling Han. "If I told you that I was the one who sold you the water element crystals, would your eyeballs pop out?" Ling Han said with a smile. That person was startled, and his first reaction was naturally that it was impossible. However, upon further thought, the fact that the Pang clan had been screwed over had not been leaked out, and only a limited number of people knew about it. More importantly, only the higher-ups of the Pang clan knew that the problem lay with the water element crystal. He had only found out by chance because his grandfather was a cauldron-forging tier elite. If Ling Han was not personally involved, how could he possibly know a secret that even the majority of the Pang clan did not know? It's you. His eyes were spitting fire. Originally, Pang Yunfei should have already leaped into the foundation building tier by now. With his freakishness, Pang Yunfei would definitely be ranked in the top 100,000 of Galaxy Network in the future. On the Celestial Sea Planet, he would definitely be one of the top existences. However, the Pang clan's hopes for the future were forcefully extinguished by Ling Han. You're despicable. You're shameless, he roared in fury. Ling Han shook his head. Before you insult others, reflect on whether you have such a position or not. What is it? Only you people are allowed to hunt me down, and I am not allowed to counter? Don't worry, the Pang clan will not exist for too long. I will personally destroy them. You're dreaming, the person said with his head held high. Even though he couldn't withstand a single blow, Ling Han was only a mere foundation-building tier cultivator. Just what kind of existence was the Pang clan? A clan with a core formation tier Grand Elder. Come on, let's see how you'll die, he provoked Ling Han. Don't be anxious. This day won't be too far away. Ling Han stretched out a hand and placed it on that person's forehead. A massive mystical power immediately surged in, heading straight for his mind. What are you trying to do? The person was shocked. Ling Han ignored him completely and merely shook the two celestial foundations in his body lightly. The effects were immediately apparent. Cracks appeared on that person's celestial foundation, as if it had been in disrepair for too long. What? That person's expression was ashen. How was this possible? He had not released the celestial foundation at all, so how could it possibly collapse? This must be an illusion. However, this was not the case. The cracks on the human Tao foundation became more and more severe, and finally, it could no longer hold on, turning into pieces. Immediately, it crumbled, turning back into the energy of heaven and earth and the mystical appreciation of martial arts. No, he screamed tragically. Once the celestial foundation was broken, he had directly fallen from the foundation building tier to the mortal level. He had to leap over the celestial gate and build a celestial foundation again. However, this wasn't the end. Ling Han's mystical power was still surging through his body, shattering his meridians, mystery realms, and apertures. In this way, that person was a complete mortal, aside from having a slightly longer lifespan. However, his cultivation level was completely gone, so his lifespan wouldn't be much longer than ordinary people. Moreover, he had already lived for more than 200 years, so he could only live for another 10 years at most. He was originally in his prime, but now he had to count the days and wait for death. Furthermore, he was a cripple. How could he accept this in this moment? He was in a daze, appearing extremely confused. Don't worry. In your lifetime, the Pang clan will definitely be destroyed, Ling Han said. Through these words, he expressed a strong confidence. What force was the Pang clan? Core formation tier level. Thus, to destroy the Pang clan, the cultivation level of core formation tier would naturally be needed. And how many more years could the Pang clan have left to live? More than 10 years. In other words, Ling Han was confident that he could advance into the core formation tier within 10 years. If others knew this, they would definitely say that he was too conceited. What core formation tier cultivator hadn't reached this level when they were several hundred years old? To complete such a leap in just over a dozen years, wasn't that too conceited? Ling Han patted that person's shoulder. Take care. After saying this, he leaped into the distance. The person from the Pang clan instantly collapsed onto the ground. His name was Pang Firen, and in the Pang clan, he could not be considered a prodigy, but being able to advance into Celestial Path was naturally already very impressive. Did you all see and hear that? He asked, his voice carrying a sobbing tone. Just now, he had activated the recording function of the connecting device. Everything he saw and heard would be simultaneously transmitted to the Pang clan. At first, this was to allow the members of the Pang clan to witness the death of their enemy. But they had never imagined that things would actually develop in the opposite direction. On the other side, the Pang clan had naturally exploded long ago. Previously, they had taken the video and allowed their own juniors to watch through the projection. They naturally had to participate in such a matter to vent their anger. Just when Pang Firen was crippled, the Pang clan had already gone to inform the Cauldron Forging tiers and the only core formation tier elite in the clan, their ancestor. In a virtual space of the Galaxy Network, the members of the Pang clan were all seated, their expressions cold, extremely furious. Who can tell me why that brat has such high battle prowess? The core formation tier Grand Elder of the Pang clan slammed his hand on the table, so angry that even his beard was trembling. This brat had already caused the Pang clan to lose 2 foundation building tier cultivators. One was killed and the other was crippled. If Pang Yunfei was taken into account as well, there would be a total of 3 people. How many Celestial Path elites did the Pang clan have in total? Everyone was speechless. Previously, Ling Han was only an enlightenment tier, but how much time had passed? Not only had he advanced into the foundation building tier, he could even easily insta-kill an ultimate Dao foundation cultivator. One of them revealed a focused expression, then opened his mouth and said, "I just received news that the despicable brat is a member of the political hostage manor. His name is Ling Han, and he comes from the celestial sea planet's Dark North Nation. Previously, he even concocted the foundation dissolution pill in the St. Pill Hall, and became an alchemist there. He is greatly revered." "What?" everyone exclaimed in shock. This brat was actually an alchemist? No, was he an alchemist prodigy? So what if you are an alchemy prodigy? Since you are a great enemy of our Pang clan, your only fate would be destruction, the ancestor of the Pang clan said balefully. Everyone's discussions stopped one after another, and they all nodded. Ling Han had also made his stand clear. He wanted to destroy the Pang clan. The 2 sides were already in a situation where neither side would rest until the other was dead. "We definitely can't give this brat any more room to grow," a Cauldron Forging tier cultivator from the Pang clan said. His name was Pang Tong, and he was Pang Firen's grandfather. Thus, he was naturally even more resentful of Ling Han. "That's right." Another white-haired elder nodded. "That despicable brat is an alchemy prodigy. If he becomes an Earth-tier alchemist, then as long as he stands and raises a hand, there would definitely be a great many true self-tier elites willing to work for him. At that time, our Pang clan would really be in danger. But our Pang clan does not have any force in the imperial capital. So what can we do to him?" One of them raised the most realistic question. The Pang clan was not even in the imperial capital. "Go and ask the Tang clan for help," the ancestor of the Pang clan suddenly said. In the past, the Tang clan was once a member of the Pang clan. When the Pang clan declined, the Tang clan's ancestors traveled to the imperial capital. Although there hasn't been much improvement, there are still elites at the core formation tier. I'll ask the Tang clan for help and have them send elites to kill that despicable brat. The members of the Pang clan all nodded, but their expressions were very solemn. The Tang clan owed the Pang clan a favor, so as long as the Pang clan spoke up, and that was only to deal with a foundation-building cultivator, the Tang clan would definitely be too embarrassed to say no. However, favors would be decreased every time they were used. In the future, if they wanted to trouble the Tang clan to do something for them, it would not be something that could be done with just a word. "Detestable brat," the elites of the Pang clan said hatefully. "Go and retrieve Firen first." The ancestor of the Pang clan continued, "If the conditions permit, we will capture him alive. I have a premonition that there may be a colossal secret hidden on that brat. This time may be a turning point for our Pang clan." Hearing these words, the members of the Pang clan finally showed an expression of delight. That's right. Ling Han's strength was a little inconceivable. This boy must be hiding an astonishing secret. If the Pang clan could obtain it, the Pang clan might be able to profit from this misfortune. We definitely can't let the Tang clan know about Ling Han, and then ask them to capture him alive. Even if they can't capture him alive, they have to get the corpse back. They all chattered among themselves, appearing to be very excited. However, they had forgotten one thing, and that was Ling Han himself was in the Jiayuan Manor. Even if it was the Tang clan, would they dare charge into the Jiayuan Manor to commit murder and kidnapping? This was practically a great humiliation to the majestic empire of the Meng clan. Just thinking about it, the Tang clan would not dare to do such a thing. They were only repaying a favor, so how could they be willing to involve their clan in this matter? Ling Han returned to Jia Yuan Manor. At this time, there was still some time until midnight. He stood at the door for a while before stepping into the manor. Though Tang Yen had promised that he would soon get him out of here, that was a matter for the future, after all. Ling Han returned to his quarters. He had not even gone to rest when he heard a servant report that Lu Xuanyu was requesting an audience. And so late, Ling Han pondered for a moment, before saying, "Show her in." He sat down in the living room, and in a short while he saw a servant leading Lu Xuanyu over. "Greetings, Captain Lu." Ling Han stood up and clasped his hands in greeting. Lu Xuanyu smiled beautifully. "How does it feel to be free?" "Very good." Ling Han nodded. Indeed, those who had not lost their freedom could not imagine how precious freedom was. Lu Xuanyu was very satisfied with Ling Han's answer, and asked again, "Then do you want to continue possessing your freedom?" Ling Han's eyes twitched. What was the meaning of this? "As long as you sincerely work for me, I can guarantee that you will be granted the privilege of going out for a day every month," Lu Xuanyu said slowly, having a strong confidence in herself. For people like them who had lost their freedom, they had a short taste of freedom, and their yearning for freedom naturally surpassed all else. This was a massive temptation. Lu Xuanyu did not believe that Ling Han would be able to resist. Ling Han smiled faintly. "What is considered sincere? Concoct 10 foundation dissolution pills for me every day." Lu Xuanyu finally revealed her true colors. "Don't worry about medicinal ingredients. I will prepare them for you. You only have to concoct alchemical pills." For her, the foundation dissolution pill was too useful. She had no plans to sell it, but rather wanted to use it to befriend those true second-generation young masters and enter into the highest social circle in the imperial capital. Ling Han shook his head. "Apologies. I am unable to accept this condition." Lu Xuanyu smiled faintly, and did not seem to be angry, as she asked, "Then what if the conditions include me?" Ling Han looked at Lu Xuanyu in surprise. What was the meaning of this? "As long as you work for me, I am yours," Lu Xuanyu said in a seductive tone, her peach blossom eyes seeming to be covered with a layer of mist. Ling Han seemed to understand slightly. Why was it that it was she who had become the leader when there were clearly 2 cauldron-forging tiers here? Furthermore, they were all hostages, so what right did she have to fight for a chance for everyone to have a day of freedom? Previously, she had even said that as long as Ling Han listened to her, he could go out once a month. Was she the one who owned the clan mansion? She was only a cauldron-forging tier cultivator. On the Moonlight planet, such a person couldn't even be regarded as an elite, so how could she be so confident? However, if one used beauty as bait, it would be a different story. So dirty. Ling Han felt disgusted, and said calmly, "Please behave yourself." Lu Xuanyu was surprised. She had not thought that Ling Han would actually reject her. It should be known that firstly, she was a beauty among beauties in the first place, and secondly, they were all imprisoned here, and could not come into contact with women. How could it be that they would make a move on those 40-year-old aunties? Now, she was willing to take the initiative to throw herself into his arms, and you are actually not the slightest bit moved? "I'm at the cauldron-forging tier. Have you played around with women who are at the same cultivation level as me?" Lu Xuanyu tried to tempt him. Ling Han scoffed. This woman still had the face to say that she was a cauldron-forging tier cultivator? She was practically a prost that was still trying her best to promote herself. "I'm going to rest now. Please leave." He stood up and walked straight to his bedroom. Lu Xuanyu did not move, but her pretty face had become incredibly cold. She had been rejected. She had actually been rejected. This was something that had never happened before. Furthermore, the person who had rejected her was actually only a foundation-building tier cultivator. If it was not for the fact that you still have value to exploit, just because you have humiliated me, I will not spare you," she said through gritted teeth. "From tomorrow onwards, you will know the consequences of opposing me. I don't know how long you can last." She humphed and strode off. The next morning, Ling Han started to cultivate under the sunlight. He discovered that cultivating under the sunlight would speed up his advancement slightly, though it was only a slight bit. Under the sunlight, the energy of heaven and earth would be even more energetic. However, this had never shown when he had been cultivating before. Could it be that this was because he had switched to cultivating the ancient Sun Divine Scroll? After Ling Han finished cultivating, a servant came to find him, his expression very ugly. "Young Master Han, I didn't get the cultivation resources today. I didn't even get the food for 3 meals a day," he said. It had come so quickly? Ling Han knew that he had rejected Lu Xuanyu and would definitely suffer her revenge, but he had not thought that it would come so quickly. She had the right to distribute resources in her hands, and she was just going to misuse it? Ling Han nodded. "I understand. Young Master Han." The servant couldn't help but say, "Why don't you lower your head to Lady Lu? I heard that Lady Lu has an extremely good relationship with a mighty figure of the clan mansion." Ling Han frowned upon hearing this. Since when had those close to him become lobbyists? "You may leave." He waved his hand. The servant still wanted to persuade him further. "Leave." Ling Han's voice became harsh. The servant was exasperated and could only step back. However, the gaze he directed at Ling Han was clearly filled with displeasure. "You are a foundation-building tier, and as long as you absorb the energy of heaven and earth, you would not die, but what about us? We are only mortals, and without food, what would they eat?" He left resentfully. He was going to join forces with the other 2 servants to go on strike.